FTN Broadcasting returns to the world center of racing, but tonight it's with a southern twist. For the first time in its history, the Southeast Racing League is presenting a full-length NASCAR Xfinity Series event. This is the 2025 SOUTHTONA 300, a 120-lap, 300-mile race across this 2.5-mile circuit. Welcome back, of course, to Daytona Beach, Florida. This is the Daytona International Speedway, and we are just minutes away from getting the green flag here in sunny Florida. It's great to return with more than 25 drivers already registered. We're looking forward to high-speed, action-packed racing as we've seen many a time before. For a lot of these drivers, it's their very first time racing on FTN coverage, many of which, though, know each other from the southern racing scene, and they're taking their talents in the late models and street stocks up to the national level with a lot on the line. I'll be your host for tonight's broadcast. I'm David Kreutz, commentating and producing. Welcome, and we are just about ready to show you what's going on with our first laps of qualifying. Drivers have now 7 minutes on the board to get their qualifying times in, many of which have already taken at least one lap so far. At the top of the board is Jordan Blair, as you see there, the black number 81. He's got the provisional pole position. He's got it with a time 50.127. Looking at your timing pylon to kick off the night, he's going to be no longer the leader, as up to the top of the board, Dalton Ledbetter goes, the number 32, up with the top time, 49.763. Jordan Blair's 0.3 of a second behind on that run, and Blair very confident, only to get usurped by Cody Griffin. Cody gets it up to P1, 29 1/1000ths of a second quicker. A lot of the time when we're here at Daytona, qualifying is rather run-of-the-mill. Drivers don't often see things change when it comes to strategy. Instead, it really comes down to if you run the right line. You're going to be full throttle all throughout the way, so drivers just want to figure out when to go and how to do it. This first lap for Ian Smith, who we're watching with right now, well, he hasn't set a time so far. He doesn't have any laps yet. This is his first. He's going to use that high side of the groove, and he's set to come down and in this time by for his second quicker lap. Ryan Honeycutt now goes up to the top of the board. It's the 51.45 of a second quicker than Cody Griffin. Ian Smith, his first time, is a second off, and he's currently in 12th. Smith and Curtis May are at the top of the board in terms of battling for the top 15, but they're pretty far off otherwise. They're still just within the range of getting a good lap in. For Smith and many others, this is their second attempt, so they should be significantly faster. Eric Lombard is coming across the line this time through. He's going down the back straightaway as it stands at a speed of 177 miles an hour. One thing to note, these drivers may be running slightly different setups. This is an open session, which means that drivers have the chance to change up their settings if they would like to, most of which should be fine on the basic setup for race pace, but qualifying is a different ball game. Anyone can go whichever way they like. Joseph Sizik gets to 10th on the board with that one, half a second off the pole position. Jeffrey Johnston is in 6th on his first lap, and it looks like this second one should be ever so slightly quicker. Johnston in the black and gold, 27 tonight on your screen, just outside the top 5 as it stands. Moreover, Joseph Madigan going to be currently 17th here. He's going for his second of 2 laps. Johnson gets up to P6. Landon Norris gets P13. And it looks like a few other drivers getting some better laps out of their final run. Jordan Blair is now down to 8th after holding that pole position. And as the sun no longer shines on the track, drivers have an extra chance to get some more speed out of it. Madigan across the line, 49.751. That lap time was good for 4th. One of the fastest of the session. Madigan gets it up inside the top 5, and it leaves now only 2 drivers left on track, Trevor Oswinarth and Daniel Park. Trevor, the first of which, rolling down the back straightaway as we speak. Dan Park is also waiting in the wings. He's on the bottom groove right now, coming off a pit road. This will be Dan's first lap as well. These drivers have about 3 minutes to get 2 laps in. Daytona, it's a large track though. One mistake could end their qualifying run. Going up to the high side of the circuit, pretty quick move there for Daniel Park. So Honeycutt and Cody Griffin are the top two drivers right now. They are separate by 45 one-thousandths of a second. Your top 10 right now is going to be split by 4/10ths of a second here. So there is a lot of wiggle room compared to maybe what you'd usually see at a super speedway race. A lot of the time, times are bunched up tightly. The top 5 drivers are only 74 one-thousandths of a second apart, but everyone else is giving a lot of room for some improvement. That's something worth looking at here in the coming laps. Someone like the 7 to Daniel Park has a real opportunity to break into the top 10 just because there is that room for error. Same goes for Trevor Aswinarth. Right now, Trevor's going to be going through turns 3 and 4. Just makes it more important to get that second lap right, and building momentum on the first lap as going on the high side is the best way to go about it. Trevor's going at 170 at the top of the track. Daniel using the middle, he's going 174 and building up a little bit more speed. That middle groove might be the right direction, and we're going to find out now as both drivers go for their final laps. So now it looks like Trevor's going at 180 miles an hour here. Daniel Park about 181 into turns 1 and 2. Slight difference, but right now, advantage Park. Daniel jumped up to 13th on that lap, and Trevor was 21st, so there's a clear difference in how these two drivers are running the track here. Trevor looks a little bit slower, and that's going to be, of course, a negative on this second lap. If he wasn't quick enough the first time around, it's going to show now. Still, Daniel Park, several miles an hour quicker, doesn't go under 178 throughout the entire set of turns, as Aswinarth comes across the line at about 177 miles an hour. Just enough improvement at the line to go under 180. That lap time will not be good enough for the top 10, but for Daniel Park, that's going to move up to P4. Park, with the middle groove, gets inside the top 5. Aswinarth, 13th. And those minor differences in miles an hour make all the difference, as right now the track is empty to conclude qualifying. 1 minute left on the board, but tentatively speaking, we've got ourselves a pole sitter here, the virtual Daytona International Speedway. Welcome, fans of the Southeast Racing League. You're watching on FTN Broadcasting, and you're watching at a familiar track. Just a few minutes ago, the 24 hours of Daytona wrapped up racing, an overnight event in the endurance world, but tonight we head back to the oval configuration, built in 1959, first raced in 59 as well for the inaugural Daytona 500. The International Speedway is built on the heritage of stock car racing. Just a few miles away, Daytona Beach, well known for its land speed record attempts in the early formation of stock car racing. Since 1959, Daytona has been one of the premier grounds for motor racing, not only in the NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Truck Series, but also for IMSA, endurance racing, the American Motorcycle Association. We've seen rallycross. We've seen all forms of oval action. We've even seen the NASCAR Modified Series come about. But tonight, it's the 2.5-mile large oval you see on your screen, with banking of more than 30 degrees in all 4 corners and a banked tri-oval of over 15 degrees. It's a high-speed track, and drivers will not have to worry about letting off the throttle as the sun continues to set tonight. Just above our racing circuit, we're expecting a day-to-night race with how much time we have on the table here. 120 laps of action. Right now, as the qualifying grid gets together, you'll see the iRacing pace car at the forefront. Everyone else coming with 29 drivers. That's the final registry for tonight's race, just under the 33 expected for the day. A few drivers unfortunately not able to make it, but the majority of the field is with us here. We have 15 rows, 14 of which are completely filled. So without further ado, let's get to know your starting grid here from Daytona. A lot of new faces, but up front it's rather familiar, as it's Ryan Honeycutt who collects the pole position, and with them will be Cody Griffin inside of row number 1. Griffin, a former full-time driver in the Integrity Racing League. He's coming back to Daytona, the site of one of his Integrity Ignite Series wins. Then you got Chris Walker there in the number 23. He'll take third place with Daniel Park, running in 4th. Joe Madigan's going to find himself in P5, and Dalton Ledbetter is going to be 6th on the order. The gap between these top 6, only about 100 thousandths of a second, only a 10th between the first 3 rows. Then from there, you're going to see 7th place, and that's going to come in the form of a driver we're also familiar with. That's Casey Shue with his experience on Monday nights in Integrity. He's back and starts in 7th. Logan Truitt will be in 8th, Jeffrey Johnson 9th, and Jordan Blair is right there in P10. Bob Leclerc and Ian Smith are 11th and 12th, some of the first drivers under the 50-second bubble in this grouping from Jeffrey Johnson on down. You're then and there going to have 13th place in Trevor Oswinarth and Joseph Sizik in 14th. It's going to be Jaden Mizell and Eric LeBombard 15th and 16th, with 17th and 18th place given to Landon Norris and Robert Missy. To round out the field, this is outside the top 20 from here on out. You're going to see Chris Ellis, Jared Ogletree, they're going to be 19th and 20th. 21st is Curtis May, Adam Baker 22nd, Ross Dalton 23rd, Evan Carbon will be in P24 with 25th place. Then Dylan Butler, Mike Steele will be 27th, John Colmerkin will be in 28th. And the last driver of all those on the starting grid is the number 24. That's Logan Tackett, and he'll round out the starting grid here in Daytona. Qualifying has concluded, and just about every driver has rolled off the grid. It's about time we go SOUTHTONA Racing. A beautiful day here in Daytona Beach. Conditions are accurate to what you're seeing in the real world. Sun is setting slowly but surely, and drivers are going to deal with accurate forecasting all night long. Weather today, track temperature coming in at 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are northeast bound at about 10 miles an hour. Relative humidity coming in at 45%. And of course, ambient temperature 74 degrees. Contrary to what you're seeing, it's a mostly cloudy day here in Daytona, so all things considered, we might see a little bit more of that cloudiness before the sun fully sets. Taking a look overhead the virtual Daytona International Speedway right now, you'll see just how big this track is. It's practically got its own zip code. Only toe-to-toe with a few other tracks in the country like Indianapolis and Talladega or Pocono for size. This 2.5-mile circuit is rapid fast. Its size it makes up for with its speed. Those bank corners will carry every driver around at more than 175 miles an hour. And since they're all going to be so quick against one another, we'll start seeing pack racing, as we always do. These Xfinity cars have a great superspeedway package, and they're pretty durable, all things considered. Composite bodies mean you can get away with maybe beating or banging once or twice, and thanks to the admins here, we'll have one faster pair for every driver. There's a second chance even if mistakes are made, so the field won't have to worry all too much about if they make some small errors. If we have a big wreck early too, you don't want to see the entire field fall out in one foul swoop. Honeycutt's at the top of the board. Next to him is Cody Griffin. Two drivers you might be familiar with, both on FTN or off it. Honeycutt is one of the many drivers today who has some real-world experience in the racing scene. He's a spotter in the Arkham Hard Series, having some local experience in the Carolinas, among many others. All things considered, he's a driver who knows what it's like inside and outside the cockpit, and that's the best thing you can have, but experience in Daytona. A lot of the time, you can't tell what's going around you at this track. It's not like an intermediate circuit or a short track where you can break away and get in your own groove. You're at the mercy of some 30-plus drivers, no matter where you are on the circuit, even if you're the race leader. So with Honeycutt having that critical experience and knowing what gets you away from trouble from the outside perspective, he's bringing that look in to the inside. And Cody Griffin, to say nothing of that number 3, would be completely wrong. He's one of the fastest in the business at Daytona. Last season, when the Integrity Racing League let loose a total of 55 drivers on Daytona for their season opener, first and foremost, it was a great race. Secondly, Cody Griffin won that race. and it was a barn burner of a finish. Griffin knows what it's like to get it done, even when the stakes are high, and there's no better driver to lead that outside groove tonight than the number 3. Courtesy of Cody Griffin, this race is being taken place, of course, so we'd like to thank Cody for the chance to broadcast and for hosting all of these 29 drivers who have come out to Daytona looking for a thrilling spectacle at the end of 120 laps. While the top 2 drivers might be race-winning favorites, no doubt about it, the rest of this field is strong. If you've watched on elevated TV before, you might remember some of these names. Dalton Ledbetter, not to mention further back, drivers like Trevor Aswanarth, or a little bit further back, Ross Dalton. His racing team has come out in full force. Owner of Ross Dalton Racing, the RDR number 50, is going to be a driver to keep a good watch on. We got some wonderful paint schemes in the field as well. We'll discuss them all night long. It's a group of drivers very talented in all accounts. And now, Daytona sometimes takes away that talent factor, and it also comes down to luck. But rest assured, this is a good group, and they know exactly what to do. Cody Griffin, I spoke with him just before the broadcast, and he suggested that for the first 100 or so laps, don't be surprised to see some of that single-file train racing just to make sure we get through most of this race in one piece. Hopefully it's not all too boring for the viewers. We might see that strategy come in play, but even if it's a little bit more racy, I have no doubt this is the field that can keep it green. Heading down the back straightaway now. Second race FTN has seen in 2025 at this prestigious circuit. SNT went here just 3 weeks ago, and when they did, it was Jacob Wilkerson who took the victory by only 51 thousandths of a second in a green-white checkered attempt. Maybe we see another green-white checkered. Some of these guys are used to the GWCs, a lot of which are used to long green flag runs. Anything could happen. Anything can happen, and it's Daytona. Expect the unexpected. The field will take itself toward turns 3 and 4, and leading it, the pace car and its driver. One last time, Fred Jones in that iRacing pace car will drop down and in, and the field will be at the disposal of Ryan Honeycutt and Cody Griffin. Honeycutt's got the bottom as your control driver. Cody Griffin will have to match his step as they go right through the tri-oval, and for the first time in 2025, the green flag is out on the SOUTHTONA 300. Honeycutt gets the jump down low. We're green flag racing. 120 laps awaits. Early running has been clean in this first lap, and the same leaders have the same lines. Inside is Ryan Honeycutt. Outside is Cody Griffin. Now we get things rolling, and this is when you start to see those strategies develop. First and foremost, it begins with the number 51. Ryan Honeycutt has an opportunity here to just keep things smooth and simple, as the outside already sees a move up. That's going to be the driver, the 23. Enter Chris Walker. Walker at the line will lead that lap. It's an advantageous and opportunistic move, to say the least, but don't be surprised if we see more of that than anything else tonight. Walker's going to take it to the jump. He's now got the inside to himself, and he's not afraid to lead those laps early. Last time when we were at Daytona, which was 3 weeks ago, we saw that the leaders, the guys who were unafraid of taking charge and holding the advantage all night long, I'll tell you this much, they came out on top, they dominated the race. Jacob Wilkerson, he led some 50 laps, and he was unafraid of being up front all night long. That was the winning strategy. It wasn't about shying in the back and waiting for things to happen. It turned out that if you were a more aggressive driver, you'd get away from the aggressive wrecks. When you're up front, there's very few drivers who can make contact with you. You might be at the mercy of the rest of the field for cautions or things of the like, but someone in 23rd place cannot hit you when you're in first. Someone in first place can hit you when you're in 23rd by virtue of a wreck. The winning strategy, if of course it plays out the same way, would absolutely be to be a little bit more aggressive. Stay up in front. Don't worry about what happens behind. That's something that we've seen play out before, but it could be completely different. Remember the background for a lot of these drivers. It's not the same sort of racing that we see at a short track. A lot of these guys are used to circuits like South Boston, Irwindale, USA International, tracks that are not only a quarter of the size, but a quarter of the speed. Almost entirely irrelevant to the type of racing that we'll be seeing here today. And that's where you wonder, how can these drivers apply their strategies even if they aren't well equipped to race here at Daytona? The best drivers have already risen to the top, though. Of the drivers who we already recognize on FTN, Griffin up to first. Honeycutt, he's still there in third. Casey Shue inside the top 5. The advantage of experience is already as clear as day, and it's going to stay that way as we're 3 wide. There's Trevor Oswinart taking it through the middle. Again, he looks slow in qualifying, and we mentioned that before. These are open setups. They can be slightly different, but every setup is good in the draft. Good enough to compete anyway, and now Oswinart gets inside the top 5 for the first time tonight. How about that for Trevor? 6 laps in. We said aggression would be a good way to get yourself out of trouble, and it looks like taking those words to heart. Trevor Oswinart gets it up to P2. That's the style of racing that we expect to see tonight for the drivers who will go out there and win this race. There are going to be some drivers who are strong who lie back and get in the mix later, but it's so much harder to make a race-winning move when you're mired in the back. When you're up front the whole night, you know who's around you, you know what to expect from them. You're not going to be all too worried if you see something risky taking place, if you know how these drivers react. Daytona, if you want to break it down like this, it is almost like studying someone else's behavior from inside the car. A lot of these drivers are talking to each other right now. They're, of course, right around each other. You need to know who's there to trust and when you can make moves at what time. We're already seeing a second pack develop. It's led right now by Jordan Blair. Blair is leading the train of very, shall we say, conservative drivers. Stay in the back right now. They're going to mind their own business. They'll bide their time. They don't want to get themselves caught up in the mix of a dangerous move up and ahead. This is a strong way to get through 110 laps, but it's not the best way to win a race at the end of 120. The anticipation for this entire group, which includes Blair, it includes Ross Dalton, Michael Steele, Logan Tuckett, it includes John Colmorgan and a few other strong guys. They're betting on a yellow flag. They're betting on multiple yellow flags. So they're going to do is pretty simple. They'll stay behind. They'll let things happen up in front. Let the chips fall where they may. By lap 100, you might begin to see some of these drivers. You might see them earlier. But if they're really committed to staying in the back end of this field, they're just going to lie back and let these drivers up in front do their thing. New race leader Dalton Ledbetter, and on the bottom, Chris Walker. They're running up in front. Clearly, the riskier drivers have taken it up to the top. 53. How about Joe Sizik now inside the top 5 with Cody Griffin? Casey Shue gets behind Griffin as well, and it looks like currently the number 51 has fallen a little bit further back. Not seeing all too much of our pole sitter in this top 10. Instead, Ryan Honeycutt has taken it to 15th at the very tail end of pack number 1. It looks like right now Honeycutt's strategy is a mix of what we've seen at the front of the field and at the back. He's not going to find himself all the way up and ahead. Doesn't want to get involved in battling for the lead and make something silly happen. But at the same time, when you're so far behind, more like 3-4 seconds back on the leader, it's impossible to make a move and fast. Honeycutt right now is going to compromise. He already has the pole position, already bagged up. He knows he's fast. He doesn't have to worry about proving it. So he's going to let these drivers do what they may. As we see now, the lead battle is 3 wide again. Cody Griffin takes it to the bottom. Not sure if this is the greatest way to go about things. A few get in the wall right there. Luckily, they don't ricochet down. 3 wide, 10 laps in. And the first driver's responsible, Dalton Ledbetter and company, making it a 3 wide battle for the lead, no less. Trevor Oswanarth won't back off. Neither will Cody Griffin. I think right now we're just going to see a battle of force until someone makes a mistake. And usually that's not a good way to go about things. We'll ride on board with Jeffrey Johnson. He's got a good perspective. Johnson rides low, letting the rest of the field do their thing, and he's got the best escape plan here. He's at the back of the 3 wide racing, so if someone shoots up top and ricochets down low, he can drive down to the apron. That's a huge benefit, but at the same time, if he gets turned up, yeah, you're out of control. There's no way to recover that one. Double file a little bit further behind. You got Bob Leclerc, Jaden Mizell. To add to that, you got Landon Norris and Eric LaBombard, a few of which were running strong. They're going to be more conservative than the drivers ahead of them, but they'll stay in the mix. That number 6 of Curtis May looking a little racy. He's one of 2 Mark Martin paint schemes in the house tonight. In the Valvoline number 6, this one's a little bit easier to recognize than the second, so if you got a keen eye tonight, shout it out in the chat room because we already looked at it once today. We just didn't say it. Mark Martin, 2 throwback paint schemes tonight. The second one goes back to the very early days of his career. So if you see it, let us know. And shout out your favorite driver in the FTN chat room. We're taking all chats all night long, and we'll be talking with the viewers as this race goes on. Again, you're watching the inaugural SOUTHTONA 300. We're 12 laps in, and we're single file from 15th on back. Gap from first to last is about 16 seconds. It looks like Dylan Butler and Joe Madigan have fallen off the train. Gap is 4 seconds between 27th Chris Ellis and the field up in front. This single file group is still led by Jordan Blair. Blair very confident in keeping a 1-second buffer between he and the leader. And if we take a look overhead, I think you'd say it, and I'm going to say it as well. 1 second looks like a lot at Daytona. I mean, right now, this is 1 second between the 81 and the driver ahead of him and Bob Leclerc. And Bob is on his own frame relative to Joseph for most of the lap. Overall, Blair is 3 seconds behind the leader, Cody Griffin. 3 seconds might look like a lot more, but if we count from the start-finish line, you'll see it's maybe a little bit less of a difference than you expect. Just the distance is so exaggerated because of how fast they're going. 185 plus miles an hour. And we'll time it here and now to show you. Cody Griffin comes across the line here. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. It's a far distance, but the timing is very minimal. And the draft buffer is 1 second. So Blair has help in Bob Leclerc. Bob is 1 second ahead of him. Logan Truitt is 1 second ahead of Bob, and then the train begins to the lead pack. It's not scientific, it's not exact, but if you get that train going with good relative distances, you can stay with the leader however far you go back. Hypothetically, you could get 60 cars on the track and create a full lap's worth of drafting if you space everyone out 1 second at a time. Not easy, but it could happen. A little bit of wiggling right there. That's the 13 of Jeffrey Johnson. Luckily, Johnson puts it back together, and he'll get back in line. He's in 13th now. He loses about 5 or 6 spots, but a very good, simple save keeps him in line. Good work there from the number 13, and we'll continue on without much a problem. Cody Griffin, your race leader, 15 laps in out of 120, and so we're about a quarter of the way through what's next. That's, of course, going to be your first pit stop cycle of the night. Talking to Cody before the broadcast got going, we also learned about what we're expecting for our pit strategy estimates. Every league does fuel strategy very different, and this is no exception. Southeast Racing League has a 100% fuel limit, which means drivers can put in a full tank of gas relative to what car they're driving. Tonight is no exception. So we're expecting the pit cycles to last approximately 40 laps long. The window tonight for Daytona will be about 38 to 42 laps, depending on how aggressive you are. If you're Cody Griffin, you're going to be coming in on the early end. If you're in the draft right now, if you're someone like Eric LaBombard or Curtis May, you could afford to go up to 42 laps. And that's what being in the draft gets you. It not only keeps you quick, it also lowers your fuel usage. You don't have to worry about putting as much power in to go the same speed. Using less energy, you can go a little bit longer. And 1 or 2 laps could mean a big difference tonight, especially with how big this field is and how spread out it's gotten already. Most drivers in the field are already single file. We're seeing only about 5 or so holdouts here, from up in front, the 23 of Chris Walker, and the last holdout's the number 92. That's going to be Landon Norris. Norris fades back a little bit. He'll stay in line, but right now the outside is not strong. Strength in numbers, we always find it in the inside most often, and that's what we're seeing here. Drivers are once again taken to the bottom, and they're not afraid to use it. So don't expect to see any big differences for the first half of this race. Drivers are accustomed to what works, what's comfortable, and what gets them the longest distance here. Most drivers have realized that it might not be the right time to go 3 wide. And so they'll file up once again, and they'll get themselves ready for the long haul as we come for lap number 18. Two by two here, Walker, Aswanov, and now Ian Smith. Smith has gotten himself up from the middle of the grouping early. Qualifying is not really determined where anyone is. Ian Smith, let's talk about him. He went from 12th to 3rd in his first 18-lap run. Some of the big movers include 24th up to 5th for Evan Carlbon. Evan tonight is running the number 78 and has made it up 19 places. Of the top 10 right now, that's the biggest gain. And he's the only driver right now in the top 10 to have qualified outside the top 20. We'll talk about a wonderful early performance. Evan Carlbon is the man to beat right now of the back half of the field. He's been strong so far, he's been aggressive at the right times, and now he's second on the outside groove, and he's not letting this thing go. Most other drivers have, but I don't think Evan is ready to let the dream die of leading this race before the pit cycle comes and goes. 78 drops down and in, so Carlbon is going to let that dream die as soon as we say that, but it doesn't mean it's going to be dead for long. Ian Smith now falls back, and that gives Evan a chance to rocket up to the high side. The game of trust begins to see itself more and more here. Evan, making that move to the inside, can set himself up to lead the outside if he so chooses. Someone like Casey Shue looks high, maybe thinks about it, but doesn't go out there. But if a few drivers from the inside decide to make that move, as the number 32 of Dalton Ledbetter just did, they can get some more momentum. Ledbetter pulls out because he has speed, and he's going to bring 5 more drivers with them. And now you're starting to see who's willing to take risks and who isn't. And clearly right now, Ledbetter is willing to take a chance. Little bit of a wiggle there for Carlbon. The rest of the field stays straight. Gap between 1st to 27th is 4.2 seconds right now. Chris Ellis still the last in this big grouping. A little bit high, Cody Griffin's going to wiggle 3 wide again. There goes the number 53. That's Joe Cizik. And Joe's looking to make a move. He's stuck up in the middle. Can he get some help from the outside groove? It looks like 2 drivers go with them. 2 drivers descent. Advantage, Joe Cizik. He's up inside the top 5 now. And what a difference momentum can make. Even a few drivers can turn the tide. If you're falling back, you might end up heading up and in front just with 1 driver's momentum. The draft is so strong tonight that pulling out a line can give you big speed. Just pulling out for a few seconds can get you a few positions, and so on and so forth here. The cycle has continued, and the advantage has been in those drivers who are not afraid to take a chance. Right now, it's clear that Cizik is one of which, and he's bringing the 28 with. Evan Carlbon has decided to take it down to the low groove once again. As Carlbon does that, he's now 3rd in line. 5 cars on the outside, 22 on the inside. And I'll tell you this much, the little engines that could up top have given a good fight, but it's not realistic to hang on the whole night here. Walker, blocking the outside, does not have the speed to keep up. That's going to cost him. And now it's Trevor Aswanarth looking for the race lead. Aswanarth from 13th up to the top spot takes the point for the first time, and with him, he'll bring Evan Carlbon up to 2nd. Further back outside the top 10, you're going to see the battle go on with Ryan Honeycutt. He's gotten himself back up inside 13th place. He was a little bit further back before, but now he's the first driver running single file outside of pack number 1. He's brought Jordan Blair's group together. He's brought himself a little bit closer to the group now led by Trevor and company, and he is smack in the middle of the field in position and in spacing. That's a good place to be, balancing everything out. 23 laps in out of 120. I can assure you of one thing, of all the races I've seen at Daytona, of all the races these drivers have raced at Daytona, whatever happens less than 25% into the race never matters by the time the race ends. This lap will be relatively inconsequential for the rest of the race. That is a certainty. That's 100% the case. Unless we see an incident come astray, which I don't think we're going to see here, this lap will not matter. But it's the process of adding these laps up. That's where it begins to matter. And you'll see it because guys like Chris Walker, who have fallen back in the field with qualifying, making their way up here, it takes them laps. Laps that don't mean much to get to the point where their position matters. While the advantage right now they have is strong enough to keep the field at bay. With 2x2, not a lot of drivers are willing to make risky moves, and you're seeing that calm nature pull down the back straightaway. It's a freight train running at over 190 miles an hour. Advantage is still Walker as the 53 of Joe Sizik looks for the race lead. Joseph on the top side, and he gets bobbled back and forth. No contact, but that side drafting is not going to help him. Oswinarth helped out there by Evan Carlbon. That's going to keep him just barely inside of the top spot. The number 23, that's still going to be Chris Walker. Looks up to the high side, keeps it there. Now it's about 6 drivers on that higher groove. Walker's still the leader. It goes back to the number 13 of Jeffrey Johnson. Johnson got away from that early scare. It looks like his car is in good shape, and he'll keep himself in good spirit as he holds on to the outside groove here. Even though he had that wiggle where he headed down to the apron, he doesn't seem to have lost anything, not deterred to look out there for the race win. Johnson almost gets up in the wall there. It looks like he scraped it just a bit. And while he's been a little bit off the charts in terms of going up and down, he has pace and hasn't bothered anyone so far. And that's about as good as we can get this early on. The process of holding a simple line is perhaps the most important thing here in Daytona. Even though it's hard to actively pass so early on, knowing what it takes to keep that defense is more important. And that's something that Walker and Oswinarth are learning critically right now. That's something that Jordan Blair is learning critically right now. Blair has an important task in the back of the field as we go a little bit further behind to focus on him. He is not the race leader, but multiple races are at his disposal. He controls the fate of about 10 drivers here who are outside clearly race-winning contention right now, but they're outside of it intentionally. He finds himself running in 18th. He's got drivers all the way down to 27th following him, and he has to make decisions by himself. He's got Ross Dalton behind him, so he's got a good group of drivers he can rely on to help, but he's the one who controls how close the field is to this second pack, and vice versa. The leaders, rest assured, they don't care about what's going on behind right now. They don't seem to be all too concerned with a risky race lead battle. Now the inside line is fully in control. They care about moving forward. For Jordan Blair right now, he has to balance it carefully, the task of going forward while staying behind. That's a tightrope. That's very hard to walk at 190 miles an hour. You pull a little bit too quickly for too much time, you'll end up right with the If you don't do that, however, well, you're going to lose the field entirely. Sometimes you have to go one direction big and one direction backwards. So Jordan Blair pulls himself up once again, but he's got to carefully manage when he does what he does and how he does it. So far, though, it looks like nobody's lost faith in him. He is still controlling pack number 2. And with all that faith in Jordan Blair, the faith of Trevor Oswinarth has not been swayed. He is still your race leader. He's gotten a few laps led already, and it looks like the field is going to keep him up in front. Advantageous, the number 89 is going to be the number 23, wiggles ever so slightly. That's Chris Walker here coming out of the final turn, and that turn, a risky one. I don't think he likes where he is. He'll go down to the bottom. getting shoved hard out of turn 4. Joseph Cizik shows no mercy, and now we got a new race leader on the bottom. Cizik again is on top on the high groove. This is going to give Jeffrey Johnson a chance to get up to the top 5 here. Johnson is really running the ceiling, though. You see him going all the way up to the top side of the track. Nobody around him is doing that, but Johnson has decided to make every inch count, getting great runs down the straightaways, but losing a little bit of time in the turns. Whatever it is right now, it doesn't have a lot of implications. He certainly looks confident in whatever this is, and you can see there, bobbling up and down ever so slightly, giving room up in front. Let the leaders do their thing, stay outside, look for an opportunity. Cody Griffin is now in 7th here. He started on the front row, so he's gone from 2nd to 7th. Not a bad start so far in these opening 30 laps. He's only dropped 5 positions, and he's within a 1/10 of a second of the top spot here. Less than 10 laps away now from your first pit cycle. Drivers expecting to go down for a full set of 4 Goodyear tires and a tank of Sunoco fuel, and I don't think we're going to see anyone deviating from that. Interestingly enough, this is something that doesn't come up a lot. Drivers could, if they wanted to, choose not to go for fresh Goodyear rubber, but it doesn't seem like that's a good thing to go for, because if you do that, you're away from the pack when you leave pit road, and losing the pack on pit road, whether you're ahead or behind them, is a very bad thing, because by the time they blow by you, you're going to be significantly slower, and catching up with a 10-15 mile an hour difference in speed is next to impossible unless it's a huge pack. So right now, drivers are going to go for just about the exact same loadout on pit road, and they'll catch up to one another once again. Austin Taylor right now, one of the many who's rolling at single file pace. He's here with Michael Steele, Ross Dalton, and still Jordan Blair. Very likely that this second pack goes in together, and the first pack comes in a little bit of a split formation. Maybe some of these drivers have teammates they're working with. We know Ross Dalton Racing, a few of their members are in this one tonight. Dalton is in the second pack. Cody Griffin is here in the first. Team games might not matter all too much. Instead, what matters is your position and where you are on the track relative to everyone else. 2x2. Chris Walker, still advantage up top, and Oswinoff down on the bottom. Strategy's been pretty calm so far, with only 2 drivers off of the leading group, and those 2 have held out diligently. Dylan Butler and Joe Madigan. Not the best races for either of them, but it's not to say it's for a lack of trying. As a matter of fact, for Madigan, he missed the start of this race. He was on pit road, and if you look back to lap 1 of the footage, he was rolling out of pit road while the rest of the field got away from him. And while the rest got away, it looks like he only got one helper in Dylan Butler. Butler decided to stay back here, and these 2 drivers have worked with each other since the beginning. It's not easy. It's a really arduous task when you think about it, but the fact that Madigan is not off the lead lap, given that he missed the start of this race, is nothing short of a miracle, and Dylan Butler really coming in clutch here to help him out. These 2 drivers have been with each other since the beginning, and right now they're running a little bit slower than your leaders, coming in at give or take a second slower per lap, but 2 drivers versus 27 here. These drivers are surely the underdogs as the night goes on, and they're still on the lead lap with just a few seconds and a few laps until pit road gets busy. Very commendable effort for both of them, but the rest of the field is a behemoth here, and there's no way they're going to win against a massive enterprise like the one that Chris Walker leads. 33 laps in out of 120, coming to lap number 34. Evan Carablon is now in 3rd place. Joseph Cizik is in 4th. Ian Smith is in 5th, and you got Dalton Ledbetter running P6. Very familiar faces up in front. For the last 20 or so laps, the same 10 drivers have been in good control, and the rest of the field has remained mostly the same. Curtis May, we saw him in that Mark Martin number 6. He came up through the field to get just about 12th place, 13th place, give or take, and now he's here. Well, it looks like that's where he has stayed, and most drivers around him have done the same thing. Jeffrey Johnson has bounced up and down a little bit, but it looks like he's back down to about 13th where he was after his minor slip-up just about 10 laps ago. The rest of the field with him here, Dan Park, Logan Truitt, and even Ryan Honeycutt. Remember, Honeycutt, very slow to kick things off, but that was because he was the pole sitter and fell back by himself on his own volition. So he still finds himself just about 15th place, waiting for the rest of this race to come through. 35 laps in at a 120, pit road window will officially open 2 times from here. It'll be lap 38 when drivers are first expected to go in. Expect a heavy emphasis on these team leaders, shall we say, to go in before anyone else. That's because, of course, they're the ones leading the pack. They're using the most fuel. They burnt their stuff up more than anyone else on track here. So expecting guys like Oswinarth, like Walker, like maybe someone akin to Carbon. If you're pushing hard, you're also burning your stuff up well. And those top 10 drivers are at a special risk of falling off the table before anyone else. It'll be pit stop 1 of 3 tonight if we hold on for a fully green flag event. 40-40-40 looks to be the strategy tonight. Splitting 120 laps up into 2 pit stops and 3 stints. 40 laps a run looks to be the fair estimate right now. And now you'll see it, drivers looking to the inside, but not to pit road, maybe setting up to come in for lap number 38 and the laps to come. So far, no official signals have been given, but going down to the bottom, huge contact. Chris Walker loses control, and the big one comes in form. Walker down to the apron. He couldn't hold the brakes. Yellow flag is out just as we get to our first pit cycle. Madness in Daytona. More than 10 drivers clearly involved in that one. And Walker, from leader to the wrecker. Wow. Take a look back here as still Walker tries to put together the pieces. Chris Walker. Unfortunately, he looks like the lone culprit of that one. He came up the track, and you saw him get up into the 78 of Carbon. Then that gets up to the number 28 of Ian Smith. The 32 of Dalton Ledbetter hits the 6 of Curtis May. Then Cody Griffin is involved. Casey Shue, Justin Johnson also catches a piece. Carbon ends up going down on the track. And watch, this catches more drivers. Huge move for the 92. And what a way through for Landon Norris. We'll watch his perspective in a moment here, but Griffin involved. Ross Dalton slides to avoid the wreck. Cody Griffin drops down. Jordan Blair spins as well. And Griffin hit 180 degrees. Starts, of course, with that 23. And the caution's out for the first time tonight. Everyone has a fast repair. Not going to end their races, but my oh my, a huge hit. And that breaks the ice. It starts with Chris Walker. Here's a look once again. Replay footage will show you what happened here. As Cody Griffin was just behind at the time of incident, it happens with the number 23. Walker led that lap, by the way, and it looks like with Oswinarth pushing, minor contact, Joe Sizzith then takes him down, and as Sizzith does that, still Walker's going 180 some miles an hour. Try as he may, there's no way to get on the brakes in time. So Sizzith makes contact with Walker. And I don't think there's any way, unless you really nose it down to the inside of the track and destroy yourself, to get out of that one. Didn't look like intentional contact per se. Just a bad place and a bad time for everyone. Currently, Trevor Oswinarth will be your race leader. Ian Smith runs in second. Curtis May is now in third. With that said, we might as well dial up a driver and figure out what's going on from the racing perspective here. Great first run, but it's going to come to a stop, shall we say. It's going to be a little bit of a break in between, and we'll try to get a word with someone who's up and in front of the field. Ian Smith and Trevor Oswinarth are up and ahead right now. Looks like neither of them are available for comment, so we'll look for someone else in due time. Yellow flag out for the first time here today. Trevor Oswinarth and Ian Smith, your race leaders. Looks like nobody available to comment for the time being, so we'll step back aside and look for the racing. Talk about a huge hit for the entire field there. Luckily, more drivers were not involved, as Casey Shue's getting out of pit road right now. Daniel Park is still there. Carlin is still on his way, getting service. And we'll come around this time by to make it one lap to go. Lap number 40, restart number 1, and by all accounts, the perfect time for pit stop strategy, because it means the strategy for the rest of the race has not been affected. If we go another 40 laps under green, the exact same circumstance will occur. We'll come down to pit road again at about lap number 80 here, so now we're going to see a reset, and it's an 80-lap run from here. Same strategy call, of course. Split the rest of the race in two, and try to make these next 40 or so laps about as clean as what we saw before. One small mistake made the difference. The field gets things going once again for lap number 41. It's going to be Ian Smith, Curtis May, Eric LeBombard, Jaden Mizell, Landon Norris, Joe Sizik, and Bob Leclerc, 1 through 7. Robert Missy, Jordan Blair, and lastly, see the top 10, Justin Johnson. Rather, Jeffrey Johnson tonight. Number 13 is going to be right there with Blair, and so we'll get moving for our first restart. 27 drivers were with us in the pack before. Now all 29 will be with us. Going back to Carlin here. Evan has just gotten off of pit road, though. I don't think he's going to get with the pack, but he is on the lead lap right now. Time runs out for that 78 to catch up, though, and now with almost the entire field put together, we'll go back racing once again. Inside of row 1, it's going to be the 28 of Ian Smith, and he'll get the jump far and away. Green flag's out for our first restart. The 28 gets the lead. Rest of the field holds on back as Ian gets a car length and a half jump. Hopefully second time's the charm for a field that's already done it before. That was a great 40-lap run, and unfortunately, an issue like that, just a minor mistake, it happens. That's just as simple as it gets. You can't necessarily blame a driver for making a minor twitch, because sometimes on iRacing, those minor moments become huge incidents. So hopefully, both Joseph Sizik and, of course, the number 23, Chris Walker there, are able to avoid that in the future, and we'll get back to the very good racing we had to start. 3 wide the middle already. That's the number 76, Joe Madigan. It's Madigan's first taste up in the front of the field. Again, he was in the back because he missed the start of this race. Now he's up to third. And for Madigan, this is a miracle. He gets it up and in front, and he is now exactly where he wants to be. Green flag is going to fly for Madigan as your new race leader if he can just come around the track for one more half lap. Madigan and May, 2 new race leaders. A lot of our old contenders, they're still with us here, but they've got to battle their way back. Honeycutt is in 16th. Griffin is in 18th. Casey Shue is in, well, Casey made a lot of moves as soon as we mentioned him. Casey's in 17th here, but was as far back as 20th just before we pulled the camera on him. So for Casey and a lot of these other drivers who have to keep improving here, it's all about getting that track position back from where they were. But now they're in this second grouping where it's a little bit more challenging. Not everyone here wants to go and make passes and go for those maneuvers. So you're stuck in an environment where it's not as aggressive or risky as it was up in front. Unfortunately, the first wreck of the day happened exactly where the race leaders were, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be risky racing throughout that area all night long. Right now, Curtis May looks to be pretty confident as he finds himself up in front for the first time tonight in the SOUTHTONA 300. It is May, your race leader. We're now getting closer and closer to halfway as well. Keep that in mind. Lap number 60 is our halfway point. It'll be Eric LeBombard coming through for second. Joe Madigan's going to be third. Ian Smith, he's in fourth. Jaden Mizell, P5. And Landon Norris. How about this man in 6th place, the number 92, who's gotten himself to a point where he's up inside the top 10 by virtue of missing the last wreck. He drove right through it. He slowed down, of course, but he did get right around the chaos as it happened. As such, this number 92's got a real chance to take the race lead in the next coming laps if he decides to be aggressive about it. That's the big question here. Now drivers have a new chance to go up there and take the lead. But a lot of these drivers are ones we haven't seen today. Will they decide to pull these new tactics out and make risky decisions? Or are they going to decide to bide their time knowing there's so much of it left? I mean, with 45 laps out of 120 passed, we've made it a pretty good chunk of this race. But we're not even toward halfway. Lap 100, and those final laps, that's absolutely when things are going to go down. But one driver backs off, that's the number 77 it appears, and so dropping down to the inside, Jaden Mizell is going to decide to take a step backward, let the field do its thing. Joseph Madigan now is uncontested inside and out, and brings Ian Smith up to second. Madigan now trying to block maybe both lanes here. And that's something very few drivers are good at doing here in sim racing. It's very simple to try to go up and down, but it's easier said than done. When you try to block both lanes, more likely than not, you're going to miss a move or miss a run on the high or low groove. And if you miss it badly and you make contact, that could be your race. You don't want to end up in a situation where you get contact from the quarter panel, you get sent down the track, or worse, you get sent up the track into the rest of the field. You got to expand, of course, the way you go about things to working with one groove. Well, then moving back. Well, you can't consistently flick back and forth. Very few drivers have done it well. We saw James Thurston. He tried it in SNT, and while it succeeded, he was only able to do it for the better part of 5 laps. It's not a long-term strategy to flick back and forth, and right now I don't think there's a need to. Madigan is the leader, and every driver in the field, except for 2 or 3, have assembled under him. It's now a single file line all throughout the track. And if you're a driver, looking back and seeing that is about the best thing you can possibly imagine. Although it looks like Curtis May is going to try to take the race lead as soon as we say that. He certainly doesn't have what it takes right now in terms of the strength in numbers. The inside line is the most powerful it's been all night long. And no doubt from this point onward, Madigan's going to do his best to protect it. Jeffrey Johnson up in the wall once again. Just another small issue for that number 13 team. They've done a pretty good job of keeping things going, even though they've made a few minor mistakes here. Johnson's going to keep himself up high. A few more with them. We'll see if the outside group builds some momentum. Not only has the race strategy been shifted just a bit by the caution, but you can see that time is changing here in Daytona. The sun is almost completely set, and so track temperature has changed ever so slightly. As it stands, a 75-degree track temp, but an ambient temperature of 73 degrees Fahrenheit, which means we're getting a little bit cooler here in Daytona. We might see the track temperature drop under 70 by the time this race is over. With the sun already down in the first 50 laps, it could be completely gone by the end of the first 100. And Right now for Madigan, weather's not a concern. Most of these drivers shouldn't worry all too much about the weather. It only symbolizes that, time is flying here in Daytona, and the first 50 laps, all things considered, have gone by rather fast, and we still have about 71 laps to go from here. Madigan still getting pushed here by Ian Smith. Curtis May in second, and the outside line is beginning to form up here. Let's see what they decide to do about it. You got 6 drivers up top. The rest of the field, in its entirety, is down low. Credit where credit is due, of course, for the outside group and the drivers who have tried to make it work up top. Just because they don't have the strength in numbers doesn't mean they don't have the strength. What's going on here is that side drafting has been carrying this small group of guys up to the front of the field, even if they don't have everyone with them. And that's the impressive part. When you see drivers in the mix here who are on the outside, they can take advantage of using that groove to slow down the inside. Side drafting is not like back and forth drafting, which you see as slingshot maneuvers and all of that. That type of driving gets your car to be significantly quicker. You go under someone else, you go behind them, you get in the wake of their draft, and you gain speed because you're not the one cutting the air. But when you're side drafting, it's a little bit different. You're on the outside, you're pushing dirty air back onto the inside driver. And that means that these drivers on the high side get the advantage coming out of the corners. They might be alone, but they can stay exactly as quick as they come down the back straight, even if they don't have as much help supporting them up and down the ladder. And you see there, it's a long single file train, but we're coming up on who would be our first lapper of the night. Evan Carbon, who was previously the biggest mover of the day. He went from 24th up to 3rd place. Right now, he's down to 29th, and it looks like the field is coming for him. He's got no help. He's going to have to find a way to go and a place to go very soon because the field is approaching, and they're going to be relentless by the time they get to him. 5 drivers on the outside. Rest of the field is still going to be intact. Now, a few drivers move up immediately to try and keep things moving, but Jeffrey Johnson's been fine on his own, staying inside the top 10. Doesn't look like he's all too interested in making major moves without some help, and Ian Smith decides to go in there and help him. So Ian's now got a little bit of a buddy up top. These two could stay side by side with Madigan and Curtis May. Joseph Cizik has gotten himself back inside the top 5 too. He was previously involved in that first caution of the day as he saw himself, of course, in the number 23. Both made contact. Chris Walker was shot down the track. Walker right now is in 15th. And it looks like Cizik has been able to recover much quicker. And it looks like now he's getting ahead of the entire outside groove. Joseph Cizik up to P3 and some beating and banging further behind. And contact! One spinning. It's going to be another incident. Chris Ellis up in the wall and the yellow flag is out. Jordan Blair, Ross Dalton, Cody Griffin for the second time tonight. It looked like everyone could have saved it, but it doesn't look like everyone saved it at the end of it. Caution is out once again. So it started with the number 6, and that was just ahead here. So before we note the involvement of the number 1, it began just before he was involved. So taking a look a little bit further behind, there's the number 49 as well, catching a piece. Unfortunately, you see a very quick movement there as there's contact made. Double file racing has given us many a time before, and this is no exception. So as soon as the number 1 of Chris Ellis goes around, Chris Walker got by, and with Ellis there, it was Logan Tackett who gets away only to be hooked up the track again. Tackett gets involved with Griffin, Dalton, and the caution's out as smoke billows through the circuit. This time coming out of turns 1 and 2, it's the second yellow flag of the day. Tackett was able to drive through a little bit better. Chris Ellis definitely getting the worst of it there. And Cody Griffin involved in this second incident, now having some front end damage again. If he took a fast repair already, that is not reparable. So he's going to be in real trouble, Griffin anyway. if that's significant damage. White and gold number 3, you see the hood's popped up slightly. Could be race ending if not treated. We'll see from here. Michael Steele also got involved ever so slightly, but it looks like he mostly just drove away as it happened. Joseph Madigan leads the field inside of pit road once again. It'll be second stops of the day, so strategy is going to change with so many drivers coming in at once. Here's the new strategy in play. Drivers can go again up to 40 laps on a run. One more pit stop is still necessary. If we go green from here, expect the pit stop cycle to go until lap 100. If we don't, we might see one more pit stop before lap 80. And if it's past lap 80, a caution, nobody has to go down to pit road again. It's going to be Johnson, Jeffrey Johnson, your race leader, winning off a pit road. It looks like you saw there. Madigan got out quick once more. Jeffrey Johnson decides to stay out and keep the rest of the field behind him. Caution's out once again, live on FTN. And since we have a little bit of time before we get back to the action, we'll of course, take a step aside and thank our partners and associates who are bringing this coverage to you. You're watching the inaugural 2025 SOUTHTONA 300, and we'll return right after this. You won't miss a thing. Check the right side of your screen as we are going to keep things non-stop before the green flag flies.
This message is brought to you by the rebrand of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This publication may not be reposted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. NASCAR Camping World Ford F-150. NASCAR Xfinity Ford Mustang. NASCAR Cup Series Next-Gen Ford Mustang. Arca Menards. This has been the publication of the redesign and rebranding of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This message may not be reposted, republicated, or rebroadcasted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. Thank you, and thanks for your time.
Taking a quick step aside, 56 laps in out of 120, coverage continues here in Daytona. You're watching the Southeast Racing League SOUTHTONA 300, and we're coming back for our second restart of the day, lap number 57 out of 120 here. Jeffrey Johnson keeps himself out, as does Landon Norris and Curtis May. A few other drivers choosing to go down to pit road. Check out the left side of your screen. Last pit lap. Right now, it looks like lap 39 for Johnson and Norris means they've stayed out for about 16 laps here. Everyone who went down between laps 54 to 56 just went down to pit road. So we have 1, 2 holdouts. That's it. The only drivers who are holding out are those who have decided not to go to pit road and are waiting for one more green flag pit cycle to get to the end of this race. They might also be banking on a caution within the next 20 laps or so, which will very likely send the entire field back down to pit road. Everyone else is on that new strategy, which means that lap 100 might be the new magic number for the rest of the day. We'll see whether or not that's the case, though, as green flag and yellow flag racing is the determining factor. Second caution of the day coming after contact between Pickett and the number 1 of Chris Ellis. We'll go back green this time by. Looking low, iRacing pace car lets for the first time the number 13 of Jeffrey Johnson take the green flag. Huge drop on the outside. Landon Norris does not get things going, and the inside once again reigns supreme. Much faster off the jump. Leading now, it's going to be Jeffrey Johnson with Joe Madigan holding his fort in second. Casey Schu's now going to be barreling down the back straightaway, and it looks like it's no longer Johnson in front. It's the Madigan-Schu duo. Joseph Madigan, for as long as he stayed in the back of the field in this first half, he is coming alive to finish off this race. Took him long enough, and I think he's happy to be here more than anything else. Coming across for lap number 58, Madigan leads again. From missing the start of this event to coming out in front of the field, it's been a perfect first half turn of events for the 76. Doesn't mean the rest of this race is a guaranteed lock for him, but it's been a story of upstanding racing. He's gone from the back to the front with only one driver helping him, and since that point, it looks like he and Dylan Butler are on different paths, that's for sure. While Butler was previously with Madigan at the back of the field, it looks like Dylan has decided to keep himself there, running in 27th. Still going to be very concerned and conservative over the strategy tonight, knowing anything could go wrong at any given time. Madigan still looks to be a little bit more aggressive here, doesn't look to be afraid of getting up in the mix. He's up in front, leading the way right now, as up to the top side. There goes one of our machines involved in the most recent wreck. And unfortunately, that was Michael Steele. He'll drop back again. Jeffrey Johnson up top. Landon Norris, even though he didn't get a very good run to kick off this one, he's looking back up there. He's in the top 5. Casey Schu is side by side with him. And talk about an exciting start to this race for the 92. Norris had to drive right through the first caution, avoided this one pretty easily, and now is back inside the leading mix. For Norris, even though it looks like he hasn't made any all too risky moves of his own, he's avoided the chaos and kept himself out of trouble. That's about as good as it gets at Daytona. We said that before, and it rings even more true now as we come for lap number 60. Halftime is approaching here in Daytona. We've gone just about 50% of the distance so far, and drivers already have to begin thinking, what's the next move to come to victory lane? We're closer now to the checkered flag than we were the initial start just about an hour ago. Ian Smith and Casey Schu running side by side with each other. Looks like the advantage for momentum is up on the top. 92 machine getting pushed out to the front of the field, and Landon Norris is now your new top dog. Jeffrey Johnson right behind the both of them here. Johnson's got a good position, watching the outside groove work again. Even though the outside has been able to keep close distance, they surely haven't been able to make the moves to take the lead. As such, Landon Norris is a little bit of an outlier here. It looks like now, with the help of Ian Smith, he's got himself up and ahead. Smith has been great so far tonight in that pushing role. He was previously working with Evan Carlbin, and it looks like he's doing it again. Understanding when and where to go is a very tricky thing to do, especially at high-speed tracks like Daytona. But it looks like tonight, the best man when it comes to pushing has been Ian Smith. I think any driver would be happy to have that number 28 behind him so far. And it looks like now he's going to get some help from Jeffrey Johnson here, although Johnson's been a little bit finicky when it comes to holding a straight line. Evan Carlbin is now coming up the order again. Evan finding himself back inside the top 10 after a second stint that really didn't go his way. He was all the way outside of the lead lap territory. That's changed. Now the 78 is making moves, and he wants all those positions he lost back in his hands. By the time of the first yellow flag, it was Carlbin who was running in third place. It looks like now he's gotten himself back within 5 positions of that region, but he hasn't quite gotten himself there yet. It's going to be a little bit harder. Not going to be a simple task to make your way through from the top 10 to the top 5 to the lead. And it might be easy to pass the guys in the back who don't care about being up front now, but you're working with the drivers who are up in front because they want to be up in front. That's the game here. Joseph Madigan, I'll tell you this much, of all the drivers today, I think he's the most diligent about keeping himself up in front. We didn't see him before, but for every lap he's had a chance to be up here, every lap that he has been in the pack, he has not let go once up in front. Without a doubt, he wants to be up here, he wants to stay up here, and it looks like his decision is firm. Evan Carlin, though, on the top side is deciding to make himself the biggest mover once again. A reminder that he started in 24th today, and he's now back in front. Carlin's going to have the lead down the back straightaway, and he's going to take it over Joseph Madigan. That gives Trevor Uswinarth the lead on the outside. And so Uswinarth has a fair shot once again to take the race lead. This time, however, for the first time all night long, Evan Carlin leads the lap officially. He was inside line leading before, of course with a few other drivers ahead of him, but now he's the sole man up on top of the chart. 57 laps to go. Wonderful to see Carlin is right here, and as such, he's got himself advantageous. 57 laps remaining, and the rest of this field now at his mercy. So far, no retirees on the day. Michael Steele is the last driver on the track. He is 2 laps down. 1 lap down is Chris Ellis after that most recent incident here. So even with drivers getting involved in wrecks, all 29 have made it past the halfway marker, hoping maybe to see no retirees on the day. Last driver on the lead lap is still Dylan Butler, as the rest of the field is spread out by about 5 seconds now. Carlin coming up on a lapper, and it's one we mentioned before, Chris Ellis. For Ellis here, it looks like he's going to have a chance to duck down to the inside of the back straightaway. That he does. Ellis looks low. The rest of the field will take him briefly wide. Not a lot of good experiences with drivers on the apron, so it might be better anyway for Ellis to stay right off of it, and that he did. He's going to give everyone a fair shot to get around, and as they do, everything looks to be all in one piece once again. 56 laps to go, coming around for 55 laps remaining. And in one foul swoop, Joseph Madigan gets by. He's now going to find himself leading on the inside again. Evan Carlin decides to go up top, and now Carlin blocks Uswinarth, and it's going to be Madigan blocking Casey Shue. Casey, how about a top 5 run for the number 4 team? We know that Shue has the speed to be in some of the best superspeedway events we've seen before. In FTN history anyway, Casey Shue was involved in the longest ever green flag from flag to flag race we've seen. It was a 266-mile race at Talladega. Thomas Bresci, his teammate, came out as the race winner. Casey Shue was in the thick of that battle from beginning to end. Casey knows what it's like to be involved in long races where change is very hard to find at any given moment. Racing is aggressive, no doubt about that, but knowing when to bide your time is a great skill, and Casey Shue is one of the best we know from experience at just that. More than 250 miles under green, back-to-back in either Daytona or Talladega is no small feat, and the Integrity Racing League, both Cody Griffin and Casey Shue were in that race. They know it can be done. So tonight, 300 miles, not all of them in one stint. It's a little bit simpler, but it's a different group of drivers, so you have to keep preparing and keep evaluating what's the right move, when can you make the right move, and when is the right time. Right now, live on FTN with 54 laps to go. We're coming up on the tail end of this event. Next week, we're running a 500-mile full lap, full race event at Daytona. It'll be the next gens. It'll be hosted again by the Southeastern Racing League. So, if you're enjoying coverage right now tonight, make sure to leave a like on the stream and subscribe to FTN Broadcasting. It's free of charge. And if you enjoy tonight's coverage, we'd hope to have you back for next week's racing on another wonderful Sunday afternoon. Great crowd tonight, of course, and if you have a favorite driver you'd like to shout out, make sure to let us know. Got 29 drivers still going. If your favorite is still in this race, shout them out in the chat room. We'll be reading messages all night long. Trevor Uswinarth, your leader. Evan Carlin, gonna see Landon Norris go high. And luckily, Landon keeps it together. That could have been real tricky. 53 laps to go. Talk about a huge moment there for the number 92, and it might have not looked like he was out of control, but going up top with no warning, that's about the worst thing you can do at Daytona. 69 laps in, nice run for everyone here as we get back into the rhythm, but if you get caught up on that high side, quarter panel tag anyway, you'll be sent down the circuit. Usually, drivers on the low line are able to get away from incidents a little bit easier. But if a driver's coming down at you with that amount of speed and a full directional tilt, there's almost no way you get out of it unless you're absolutely the luckiest driver on the track. A little bit of spacing out right now. Joe Madigan's going to keep them all at bay. It'll be Madigan, Casey Shue, first and second as they come through once more. Some of the old contenders, as we mentioned, have really fallen into the darkness, and that might be intentionally, but for some of them, I don't think they've got the stuff. Cody Griffin has damage, and it's damage to the point where you can still see it. While he's running in a pack right now, I don't know if he's got passing pace, which means that even if he's pulling full throttle right now, he might not have a chance to slingshot and get out of line. He's got good protection as once again Jordan Blair is leading the second pack, but right now Blair is 6 seconds back. Oh, the number 2 is going to go around. That will be minor shot, but it's going to be a shot in the arm that sends one driver out of the way, and it looks to be Austin Taylor. Taylor's going to be sent out of line. No caution will fly, but Taylor was taken from line and now is all alone, running in 27th. Here's a look back as the number 27 right in front of him. Of course, you saw Michael Steele, Cody Griffin right there as well. So what happened here was a checkup. Steele into Taylor, into Cody Griffin, and unfortunately for Austin Taylor, he's going to slide all the way down to the bottom of the track, nearly make contact with the inside wall, and run the road course chicane to get out of trouble. Caution is out, and the yellow flag is going to fly. Take a look up to the front of the field, and it looks like at the same time as that brief hit, well, we saw more trouble. Instant replay on the matter. Up top, Jeffrey Johnson hits Landon Norris into the number 6 of Curtis May, and Norris goes around for a wild one. It's your third caution of the day, and unfortunately, Norris, who has had such a good run in avoiding wrecks, the wreck found him this time by. Norris into the number 16 of Jared Ogletree, into the number 42 of Bob Leclerc, into the 49, just alongside the both of them and Robert Missy. And it looks like some familiar drivers caught up in this wreck. Ogletree got away from the end of it. Adam Baker there just getting by. But Landon Norris shot up. And unfortunately for him, he's now going to be outside the top 20 with what looks to be a blown motor. He'd have to take that thing down to pit road. Here's a look from inside the cockpit at the time of incident. He's pulling himself away. The motor's going to go at any moment here. Take a look back. Contact, and there's nothing you can do from there. Currently, Norris is still billowing smoke as he tries to get himself back up to the front of the field. Yellow flag is out. Pit road is busy. And here we go again as drivers put themselves together for another, hopefully, long green flag run. Only about 15 laps in that stint, so we're going to hope for longer. 17 and 18 officially on tires as they cross past the start-finish line. 18 in particular for Joe Madigan. He decided to go a little bit longer than most others there. And now drivers are making their way out. Across the line, Trevor Oswinarth will lead out Chris Walker. It looks like Evan Carlbin. And then you'll see Eric LeBombard and Ryan Honeycutt. To end the top 10 right now, Casey Shue and Honeycutt find themselves as equal company with 48 laps to go, 73 in out of 120. Pit road is once again busy, and it looks like now the field comes to a standstill. Joseph Sizik has scored as your race leader. 48 laps to go, 73 laps in out of 120. And if you've enjoyed coverage tonight, make sure to check out iRacing.com, the world's leading motorsports simulator. With 16 years of experience, iRacing provides amateurs and sim racing professionals alike a chance to train with the world's most realistic adaptation of all motorsport disciplines. From stock cars to open wheel racing, road, oval, dirt, and anything in between, iRacing is the perfect place to start your sim racing career. It could become a real one as well. Visit iRacing.com today for information on how to sign up, and we'll stand by for a brief moment here. We'll return before the green flag flies as we have a brief message from our friends at iRacing.com. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back after this.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Returning to green for our third restart. It's going to be 46 laps to go when we go back at it again, led now by the number 53 of Joe Cizik and Bob Leclerc on the outside. Most of the field gets put back together after a run down a pit road, and so the field heads at it once again. It'll be Uswinarth, Tackett, Arlbin, Casey Shue just behind. Very similar makeup of the field once again. Most drivers still with us here, and when it comes to retirees, looks like now we do unfortunately have one. Ian Smith just got out of the cockpit. It looks like he's no longer on the circuit with us, and so we'll continue on with 28 drivers here at the 75 lap mark of 120. With pit row being used this time by, one pit stop is still necessary from here on out. Interesting. But if there is another caution within the next 10 to 15 laps, that would eliminate the need for another pit stop. Drivers go in. Once again, strategy comes down to the wire here. We'll see who decides to risk it if they need to. 46 laps this time by. Bob Leclerc and the number 53 of Joe Cizik get a shot up in front. 53's your control car, and he'll bring the field back up to pace. Green flag's out again for restart number 3. Cizik gets away. Joseph now is going to find himself leading with Logan Tackett, Bob Leclerc, and Chris Walker right behind him in the top 5. Some drivers we haven't seen in the top 5 in quite a while. Matter of fact, Logan Tackett barely drove out of that last incident. It would have been his second he was involved in, but now he's up in front. Tackett and the Big Six get up and away. It looks like a little breakaway from guys like number 22 of Adam Baker, Eric LeBombard, and those a little bit further back. Triple file in the tail end of the field. Double wide is more prominent right now. Question becomes, with 45 laps to go, do things settle down? Our longest green flag run of the night, it was our first. And with Bob Leclerc going up and down the track, we might have just seen another caution, but what a save that was from the 42. Contact behind Jordan Blair, but we stay green. What a save indeed there for the 42. Another driver, it's going to be Curtis May who goes sliding. We have multiple incidents to look at, but for all intents and purposes, the field is together. How about Bob Leclerc? Take a look back one more time here. The caution is out due to all the small incidents that happen at once. This is from Leclerc's perspective for the entire lap. And it starts with him, as we saw multiple other drivers. We saw Curtis May, Jordan Blair, all getting a piece. 3 incidents at once. Huge save there for the 42. Then Jordan Blair had a problem. Blair ends up making contact with Jeffrey Johnson, gets up in the wall. Curtis May coming down the back straightaway, 3 wide. Ross Dalton sends the 6 down with some help from the 25. So the caution's out. Too many small incidents as once. And the field straightened itself out mostly, but not enough as the yellow flag comes out once again. Caution is out with now 44 laps to go. Evan Carabin would lead, and it'll be Chris Walker in second. Trevor Oswinarth will be third, and Adam Baker will be in fourth. Try to dial up another driver right now and see who's involved. Bob Leclerc for one, and what a save that was. And luckily, it looks like we can get a word from that number 42 as we try to speak to him right now. Leclerc right now going to be in the middle of the field, but we're going to bring him into the broadcast booth as we speak and try to figure out what's going on for one of the drivers involved in that little shakeup. Bob Leclerc, you got involved in those little series of entanglements that brought out the caution, but you saved it real well, and you're coming down to pit road right now in one piece. How you feeling?
Well, feeling pretty good. Right now we have a pretty good race. We're with some people right now trying to have a good strategy, but we might make it until the end, seeing how we're lucky right now. Big escape on this wreck. I sweated a lot.
Well, I'll tell you this much. We didn't know if you would be able to make it out of that one. So how was it for you inside the driver's seat as that spin happened and you kept yourself straight?
Well, I was full-on lock on the left, trying to get out of the way, and trying to not lock up my wheels while turning to get as much speed off as I can. But yeah, locking it at the left and praying.
With that said, you're back on the track here. So running in the top 20 even still, a lot of time to go, 43 laps to go as a matter of fact. How do you feel about your chances from here?
Hell yeah, well, I'll try to start the back of the pack, maybe try to not get involved in future wreck if there's still some. Try to put a big show on the last 5 laps. Trying to get back up, but yeah, saving some gas and trying to make it until the end.
Right, so fuel saving from here. With that said, though, Bob, right now you're running back in 15th. You're back in line. Any final comments you'd like to give?
Big shout out to my mom that's watching right now, and thanks a lot to you for broadcasting this, and big shout out to Cody too for hosting this race.
There we go. Bob Leclerc running right now P14 after a big save. Thank you for your time.
Hell yeah, thank you to you.
Bob Leclerc, how about that save? I mean, an unbelievable job for him. A few more drivers decide to go down to pit road. This is pivotal. If you've noticed, we're at about 40 laps to go. When we go back green, there'll be only 41, and a lot of drivers just went down in for the second time this stint. So with that said, we're coming up on a very, very important moment. 40 laps to go. 42 lap stint is expected at the absolute maximum, and Bob just told us saving his fuel. He's saving his tire now. You got to save your stuff. Some drivers are not going to risk it, like you see there, Madigan getting back on the way, John Cole-Morgan, all of which are going to come together and get racing once again with a new set. They'll be more confident about making it the distance, but Trevor Oswinoff does not want to give away that track position. He's up front with 42 laps to go and looks rather confident. It'll be 41 laps remaining when we go green, so 80 laps out of 120 is the official tally left. We're coming up on the tail end of what's been an exciting race, and this is your 4th restart. Not a big incident this time around. Bob Leclerc was one of the few who went around. We saw Curtis May catch a piece and Jordan Blair. All 3 got damage. Luckily, it looks like Bob got the least of which, and all 3 are back on the track now. Of the 29 drivers that are registered for tonight's event, we still have more than 25 on the lead lap. And currently, of all who are still on the circuit, well, it looks like only 1 retiree to this point. So here we go again. iRacing pace car is fully lit up and you can see those brights are on. That's because the sun has completely set. It's about time now to go racing in the dark here in Daytona and to finish off this final stint with some excitement. The checkered flag. It'll be for the first time since his incident at front. Chris Walker with control and Trevor Oswinarth up top. Green flag's out for your fourth restart, and Walker is back to the position where all went wrong just 60 laps before. Dalton Ledbetter's going to hold his own and keep it up and in front. Ross Dalton's going to be down to the inside, both of which running 2x2 now, as you can see, just to their outside, both Chris Walker and Oswinarth once again. So now, we're at the very tail end of this race. We've gone 80 laps to this point, and we didn't think we'd even make it past those first 40 that quick. The rest of this race has been a blur so far, but now it's time to think about the crunch, the checkered flag. Each and every lap is going to count toward that point. It's not about salvaging a strategy for the midpoint of the race any longer. It's no longer about trying to get those fuel and tire numbers right. It looks like the concern for fuel and tire is out of the way. We've made it just far enough, but we will be fine. So now, the big question becomes, what can we do to get to the end in one piece? And who has the right stuff to win outright based on that fact? This is it, and everyone's got to act accordingly. So far, it looks like Chris Walker's in a better spot than he's ever been before, and he's on the outside. Ironically, what caused him trouble earlier was being down low on the inside. He got involved and was shot down to the bottom, and he went down to the apron at such a high speed, there was no way for him to make his way back up. And when that happened, there was no saving him. And that's what caused the first big wreck of the day, but now Walker looks to be in a little bit of a better shape with more control over that car. A few drivers we haven't seen all night long getting back in front. Reminder, Austin Taylor was involved in that incident beforehand where he was shot down the track by Cody Griffin. Well, it looks like now the number 2 is back up and in front. We mentioned it earlier in this race. There are 2 Mark Martin throwback paint schemes on the track tonight. Austin, he's got the second of which, and he's running the number 2 American Speed Association Mark Martin paint job from 1981. At that time, Mark Martin was full-time in the ASA, and the caution is out. This one happened in the back of the field. Looks like Logan Truitt among those involved. Dylan Butler, Robert Missy, and Robert is no doubt one of those involved heavily. So here's a look back, and we'll show you what happened, at least to our understanding of it, as the caution flies once again. Robert Missy gets involved in the number 49, and it happens at the tail end of the field. Battling down the back straightaway, most drivers were 2x2. This is your 5th caution of the day, by the way. There's Jeffrey Johnson. Oh. Hard to lay blame on anyone in that case. That just wouldn't happen in real life. Unfortunate because it involves another driver who shouldn't have been in at all. Daniel Park gets collateral damage, and Robert Missy goes for a wild ride. But again, as you saw, there was a huge gap between the 92 and the 49. Both were racing respectful, but the server says otherwise. Caution's out, and that's a real unfortunate one because Missy just blew the motor. Evan Carabin leading the way here. Looks like he will stay out on track, and the decision is clear for your race leaders. Staying out is the right move. 38 laps to go, a little bit of time to spare before we go green flag racing again. We'll bring back that non-stop coverage. You won't miss a thing. On the right side of your screen is the action, and left side, some of our partners and associates here at FTN Broadcasting. Thank you for tuning in live on FTN. We're just getting started here with 37 laps to go. The most exciting racing is yet to come, so strap up and grab some popcorn. We'll be right back after some messages from our sponsors here at FTN Broadcasting.
Boundless makes its presence felt. It will not be ignored. We're helping turn ideas into reality with a wealth of building products that take every architectural style to the next level. This is what it's like to imagine, build, and transform anything we want into exactly what we seek. This is what it means to be boundless.
This message is brought to you by the rebrand of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This publication may not be reposted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. NASCAR Camping World Ford F-150. NASCAR Xfinity Ford Mustang. NASCAR Cup Series Next-Gen Ford Mustang. Arca Menards. This has been the publication of the redesign and rebranding of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This message may not be reposted, republicated, or rebroadcasted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. Thank you, and thanks for your time.
35 laps to go, and we go back green. You're watching coverage of the 2025 SOUTHTONA 300 live on FTN. For those of you tuning in for the first time tonight, I'm your commentator and producer, David Kreutz. Been a good race so far. This is our 5th caution of the night, though, and the last 4 have come within the last 40 laps. The first of which, well, it came after a 40-lap run. We've gotten a little bit dicier since that point. Trevor Oswinarth is again the man on the high side, but for the second time in the last 2 restarts, we got a new driver working down low. Evan Carabin, the biggest mover of the day, back from 24th to 1st again. He's gotten rather comfortable in being the outsider from the bottom half of the qualifying grid to the top of the circuit. Once again, the leading man, and the 78 will do the honors of bringing us back to green when the iRacing pace car decides to head back down low. It'll be additionally just behind Chris Walker. He didn't fall all too far, shall we say. A little bit back, you got Bob Leclerc, who after that amazing save has gone from 14th back up to 6th. Eric LeBombard in the number 25, and Ryan Honeycutt, the ARCA spotter, who's kept his eyes sharp. He was your pole sitter. He's still in 8th. Green flag flies again. It'll be Oswinarth in control, and a very similar rank-and-file restart. Nobody gets a clear advantage. Joseph Sizik is going to hold himself on the inside, a little bit of weaving and bobbing back and forth again. And we mentioned how many of these drivers have real-world experience. We've got 35 laps to go, and we haven't mentioned everyone yet. So let's get the spotlight on everyone who's in this field who has that real-world connection. Southeast Racing League comprises particularly of Southeast Racing drivers. Ross Dalton, one of which in that number 50, the bright black and yellow, the Bumblebee on the circuit tonight. Well, he's well known for what he's done many a time before. It is Ross Dalton. He finds himself, of course, mid-pack. He owns Ross Dalton Racing, and he runs limited late model action in the Carolinas. Street stock racing, well, that's Ethan Johnson's drift. Johnson tonight did not make it to the track. However, Jeffrey Johnson did. He's one of the guys registered in Southeast who has that experience. And Cody Griffin up in the wall multiple times. Not good for that number 3, but to add to that Ross Dalton Racing crew, Griffin runs late models as well. Limited lates, he works for Ross Dalton Racing. He's one of the full-time guys with that shop. Another driver who's up and in front right now. How about Joe Sizik? We've mentioned him a lot. He's been quite the move maker. He runs limited late models in North Carolina under the number 53. Austin Taylor, we've seen him before on the night. It's the number 27. Currently, he's running that Mark Martin paint scheme, and he finds himself a sportsman competitor at the Bowman Gray Raceway. Dalton Ledbetter, been a quiet night for him since the first 40 or so laps. He's a limited late model driver in North Carolina. He runs the number 32 most typically. Jordan Blair, it looks like we haven't seen much of Jordan tonight by the account that he's not in this race anymore. He retired 11 laps ago. He works with Dennis Setzer's family for Setzer Racing Development. He's a pro late model and limited late model driver as well. And Adam Baker, also running with SCRL. He is with mini stock action at Bowman Gray. So a lot of these guys here know what it's all about. So far, Evan Carabin has done quite a lot. Number 78 is going to find himself going from back and forth again. And of all the drivers who have had to work to get to this point, he most likely is the number one. Oswald is going to be right ahead of him now, but that's only because the outside has some big momentum. Chris Walker now going to be just on his tail. Walker has found himself very close to the front of the field ever since that big return. He was up front leading, made contact, involved in the first big one, and his recovery drive ever since, it's been splendid. But now with 32 laps to go, you don't want to get ahead of yourself if you're a driver in this spot. We are now 90 laps through this race, effective as we cross the start-finish line. And so we do. 90 laps in out of 120 here. Looks like Bob Leclerc getting a piece of the wall. Double file racing right now is to be expected, but in the next 10 to 20 laps, especially for that final 110 to 120 run, it will be chaotic. There is no way around it. You're going to see chaos from top to bottom, from the front of the field to the back, and anywhere in between. Don't expect these drivers to lay off at the end of this race. Hell, we might even go to green-white checkered territory. The overtime rules for tonight are pretty simple. They're very similar to what we see in NASCAR. 3 overtime attempts, and when we go to that third one, that is it. Double file once again, you're going to see there, up top, Chris Walker, then Ross Dalton, and chasing after both of them, Dalton Ledbetter. But the inside is reign supreme. One thing we've noticed is, as it usually is at Daytona, the aggressive drivers on iRacing have the advantage. If you're stuck in the middle of the field, you might get caught up in a wreck, and it's very easy to avoid it up in front, with that only exception being the first caution. The mid-pack has not fared as well as the leaders today, and it goes to show that there's a risk and reward factor that comes true just about every time we head to this event here. This event, of course, coming in the form of long-form action with the Xfinities, the NASCAR Cup Series, or the trucks at Daytona. If you're able to be confident up in front and just keep your nose out of trouble, most often you're going to bag yourself a guaranteed top 10 if we go green. If you go to an overtime procedure, there's really no guarantees for anyone. '78's going to work up top. Oswinart's going to be on the bottom. Joe Sizik, Chris Walker, Dalton Ledbetter, Jared Ogletree. Now that's the big six here. 16 of Ogletree has been stuck on the back end for a little while here. He's had an up and down day, but right now it looks like he's more on the up and up. Talking about Ogletree, he started in 20th place. He's now up to 6th. Take a ride on board right now with Trevor Oswinoff, as it looks like right now 3 wide for the race lead and big pressure back. Big contact, Walker, and in the wall, Evan Carbon. Yellow flag is out, only one driver. And of course, the 32 gets away there. Oswinart gets lucky as well, but Carbon destroyed. Caution is out. 28 laps to go. And if we haven't seen it already, that might have just been the big one to end all big ones here in Daytona. Watching again. Taking a look back for the last half lap to give you the context, these drivers were 3 wide, and that's why we took that look with Trevor. The pressure is on everyone. Just like that, shot up the circuit. And a multitude of drivers involved there. You see Chris Walker, you see Evan Carlbin. Number 6 once again involved. It's hard to count the numbers of those involved again. Logan Tackett particularly. And the yellow flag, it flies. Take a look one more time here as it looks like the number 2 got the piece first and foremost. And when that hit was made, things got crazy. Austin Taylor into number 78 at Carable, and Ross Dalton spins. And a sliding end for Tackett. Involving Dalton, of course. Chris Walker in his second wreck through turn 1. Really not a good spot for him. He will not be caught alive in this turn as long as the race depends on it. 27 laps to go. Trevor Oswinoff is up on top. As the field heads down and in, there's a chance now to go for one final pit stop. And with a resounding vote of yes, most of the field will go in. A few holdouts include Oswinoff and those who just want to hold on to track position. Few others, though, and we do mean it, most of the field will head in. Ogletree, one of which. Casey Shue as well. So pit road gets busy, potentially one final time. Watching the pit exit camera, let's see who wins the race off pit road. John Colmorgan's going to move up to 11th as he gets out rapidly. Extra damage repairs for some of the field, like Chris Walker. For Walker, that might be a race ender. Bob Leclerc gets going. Chris Ellis as well. 26 to go. We go back green. It'll be 24 laps remaining. Ledbetter, Oswinarth, Adam Baker, the 1, 2, 3 as it stands. With the race on the line now, it's strategy. Let's talk about those pit stops again. Last pit lap for Oswinarth was 78. Reminder, if you went into pit road from lap 80 onward, you are good to go for the rest of the race no matter what. Only a few risk takers here. And one of which is, of course, Oswinarth. 78 laps. Well, of course, he went in at lap 78. So now he has about 42 to go. It's still possible, but for every driver who is in the 8s or 9s right now, they're guaranteed to go the rest of the way, no matter what. Oswinarth, Ryan Honeycutt, they're risking it for track position. It's not a big risk if they play their cards right under caution, but they're still going to decide to go for the old route. And take it right on board with Oswinarth. We'll see whether or not he is saving heavily. Going for that method of clutch and coast. Trevor Oswinarth knows what's up, and he is saving like every second matters. Double file, we roll one more time. Trevor Oswinarth, Dalton Ledbetter, Logan Truitt, for the first time up inside the top 3. A little bit of a different look now. Truitt has been up in front majority of the race. He qualified in 8th. He just hasn't shown his face inside the top 3. Nevertheless, now he's up where he needs to be. "24 laps to go and we head green. The checkered flag is now less than 50 miles away. In a 300-mile race, it goes to show how far we've gone to get to this point. We'll have to crank it up coming in with 22 laps to go, by the way. And that's when it gets dicey. The last moments, the last laps. This is it. If you got a favorite driver or a driver you think is going to win this race, give us a prediction in the chat room below. Once again, we're shouting out each and every one of our viewers like to give out their prediction. And if you're right, well, You get those bragging rights, that's for sure. Now the tail end is ahead of us. It's time to go SOUTHTONA Racing for 24 more laps. And for the third straight restart, Trevor Oswinoff is up top. And a new driver is down low. Dalton Ledbetter is your control car here in Daytona. Sixth restart is underway. Dalton Ledbetter in a brand new position for his race. All night long he's been running. Relatively speaking, top 10, top 15, but he has not been the top one, the driver that everyone's discussed so far. But this changes it. He's had chances beforehand up at the front of the field, but he's been rather low-key with his approach. Now he's got some help. He's got Adam Baker right behind him. Trevor Oswinoff is going to be now on the top side, but with new drivers with him as well, maybe that trust hasn't been built up. It's all about late race communication. Does the 89 have the right driver behind him? Well, I think now that might be the case. Logan Truitt and Oswinoff. If you notice, they've got the same number font here. No doubt these are acquaintances at the very minimum, and you're about to see Oswinoff get that help up top to keep himself up and ahead. Bob Leclerc in a wheel heavily once again. It looks like he's had some trouble going through those turns, and while he's kept himself straight, he's no stranger to using up each and every inch that he's got. Oswinoff now going to have to look behind. Logan Truitt just on the back end, but so many unfamiliar faces coming back up. Joseph Madigan is once again in the top 5, and so with him comes a new breed. Griffin has returned. Landon Norris is back. John Colmorgan and Joe Sizik are also in the mix. With 23 laps to go, we're coming forth for 22 laps remaining. And with that said, it's time to crank it up. Brought to you by TrackCams22.com, iRacing's leader in sim racing cameras. The best cameras belong to the best broadcasters. That's why we use TrackCams22.com. Visit their website in the description below as we get live and loud from Daytona. Let's crank it up from the World Center of Racing here in the SOUTHTONA 322 laps to go as we get loud. Incident, bottom of the field, back of the field. It looks like one driver going around and Austin Taylor. Yellow flag is out. Rank it up is postponed. Here's a quick look. And it looks like Austin Taylor, the man who goes around, there's a very far away look at the incident, but as you pull back the tape, this is the moment of impact. 100 laps in. And Taylor got around, it looks like contact with Ross Dalton, collecting the number 7 to Daniel Park. And Park heads down and in, hitting the 77 to Jaden Mizell. Mike Steele also makes contact. So, Steele involved. Ross Dalton catching a piece. Of course, Austin Taylor gets a bad one. 5 drivers in that mix-up, and it looks like Taylor might have gotten lucky, all things considered. He got out of the way. Mizell and company were brought in the way. Caution at lap 100, and the tail end of this race is slowly but surely coming forth. That's your 7th yellow of the night. Race leader Dalton Ledbetter has a choice, and he's made it. He'll stay out once again. One driver in this battle looks to go down through. That'll be Logan Truitt. Again, he decides, simply put, to get out of the way here and get those new set of rubber. Truitt was doing a pretty good job in the top 10, but he'll still decide to go for the less risky outcome. We'll see if that's the winning decision. Dalton Ledbetter right now, he's got himself up and ahead, and he still has Tyler Oswinoff right with him. Oswinoff has been for the past 4 restarts on the front row. It looks like the 89 might be a sure thing for a podium, if of course everything stays the same. Lap, of course, counting down. Can't be predicted. Can't be expected anyway. These next 20 laps going to be a mile different from what we've seen so far in the first 100. Little bit of time to spare in between yellow flag and green flag action, so we'll try to dial up another driver once more. With a few drivers familiar inside the top 10, hopefully someone can come a-calling. We'll see in the brief moment. 20 laps to go right now. Overall, tire strategy has remained remarkably consistent. Now every driver can guarantee that they'll go the entire distance, no matter what. Oswinarth with these yellow flags will be given his bailout, and he'll have a chance to go the full way, even though he played the risky call of deciding not to go down and in with everyone else. Eric LeBombard in that number 25, more the same here in the Better Call Saul machine. He's been playing, of course, a similar route of staying out of trouble and deciding to go against the norm. But now, with everything equalizing out at the end, he'll be able to make it. I think every driver here will go the distance. Without damage, there is no other need for a pit stop tonight for anyone in the field. Coming to one lap to green this time by. Daniel Park and Logan Tackett are the only drivers we see right now on pit road. Tackett, major damage. Really nothing else he can do. He'll get back on the track, but it's not been his day. 4 retirees now. Robert Missy, Jordan Blair, Curtis May, and Ian Smith. That leaves 25 drivers with us, 24 on the lead lap. One lap to green this time by. Oswinarth taking his very familiar up top. That's the 89. Down low, Dalton Ledbetter. And it's another chance for these two to go at it. This time they're consecutive front row starters, back to back. Back straightaway now filled with drivers once more. And it looks like we're ready to go at it. 18 laps to go. Once again, this next set of laps going to be brought to you by our friends at TrackCams22.com. For the highest quality sim racing cameras, broadcasters, and iRacing users alike. Go no other place than TrackCams22.com. We'd like to thank them for their continued support. And we'd like to thank the fans for hitting 2,690 subscribers today on the journey for 3,500 this year. And we just hit that first milestone, of course, of 2,600 to kick off the month. 2,700 just 10 away. So if you haven't subscribed already, we'd love to have you back live on FTN once more. Green flag will fly. 18 laps remain. And it's about time to go racing. Ledbetter, Oswinarth, the trusted faces up front, will bring us back for a full speed excursion at Daytona. Pace car decides to head down low once more. Could be the final time it does tonight. And Dalton Ledbetter's got control. Green flag's gonna fly as we, of course, get our chance to crank it up here with 18 laps to go, courtesy of our friends at TrackCams22.com. Ledbetter with the jump. Let's watch as the field comes right up to speed. 14 laps remain now in Daytona. Adam Baker finds himself the new race leader, and it looks like now drivers have settled in again to a double file form that has been rather familiar all night long. Baker, Ledbetter, Oswinarth, the 1-2-3 tandem. They're the drivers who now find themselves amidst one another, and it's a very unfamiliar, shall we say, grouping now. We have guys like Eric LaBombard, who's been rather quiet in that number 25. We mentioned him before the restart. Well, now things have about changed. He's the driver making moves up in front from 16th up to 4th of your top 5. 3 drivers qualified outside the top 10, 2 outside the top 15. LaBombard and Adam Baker, with Baker now taking top honors as the biggest mover of this race. The Baker's dozen, that's what's left. 13 laps to go now, and with LaBombard running behind the Baker crew, of course, with Dalton Ledbetter and the like, everything could happen, and there's nothing to be expected. Bob Leclerc right now, well, we talked about his amazing save. Something we've noticed, though, is he's still rather prone to using up each and every inch of the track. That's a habit that's not going to help out a driver who doesn't have full control. Leclerc is one of our very few international drivers, as a matter of fact. He is coming out of Canada today. A lot of these guys here race, of course, in the Carolinas or somewhere in the Southeast. Leclerc is one of the exceptions. He's one of our guys who is coming from the land over and making his way down to Florida. It's a pretty big virtual trip, shall we say, to make it back to Daytona, but he's done a real good job for a foreigner anyway. Contact Ross Dalton. Dalton's going to go around sliding. The number 50 goes for a wild ride. Caution is out. Ross Dalton, the black and yellow, sees trouble, and the yellow flag flies again. Here's a look at why. As we take a look back, it's coming through turns 3 and 4 where it all begins, and then from there, Ross Dalton gets in a real tricky spot. The RDR machine got contact there, and it looks like it's from the number 92, and from that point, sent down and in. Landon Norris and Ross Dalton catch a piece of each other, and luckily nobody else was involved, but consistent with everything else, caution's out. RDR spinning out of line. Rest of the field did get away. Safety yellow flag here with 11 laps to go. When we come back green, it'll be some 9 laps remaining. The single digits are just ahead of us here, and it's now time to see who's got the best in it. Dalton Ledbetter's been pretty good, and as has Trevor Oswinarth. Those 2 drivers have dominated the last 3 restarts back to back to back, and they've kept themselves in control no matter who has come their way, particularly this number 89. Unrelenting at the front of the field, that's for sure. Maybe there's a better shot for Trevor than anyone else right now based on the numbers. With that said, predictions aren't going to mean anything. Even if Trevor's held control on the high side for oh so long, one bad lap could be the difference. And I'll tell you this much, every driver has a bad lap at Daytona, though it isn't unexpected for it to happen for someone like the 89. 1 lap to green next time by, which means, yes, we'll have 8 laps to go. Even a little bit less than what we just said here. With that said, a little bit of time in between the green flag and the yellow will bring you back with 1 to green, and we'll return after some non-stop coverage. You're watching live on FTN, the SOUTHTONA 300, and we'll return right after this.
This message is brought to you by the rebrand of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This publication may not be reposted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. NASCAR Camping World Ford F-150. NASCAR Xfinity Ford Mustang. NASCAR Cup Series Next-Gen Ford Mustang. Arca Menards. This has been the publication of the redesign and rebranding of Throttle Graphics and Designs. This message may not be reposted, republicated, or rebroadcasted without the authorized written consent of Throttle Graphics and Designs. Thank you, and thanks for your time.
Boundless makes its presence felt. It will not be ignored.
This message is
We're helping turn ideas into reality with a wealth of building products that take every architectural style to the next level. This is what it's like to imagine, build, and transform anything we want into exactly what we seek. This is what it means to be boundless.
One lap to green, 8 laps to go, and we head back at it here in the 2025 SOUTHTONA 300. Currently, your race leader is going to be Adam Baker, who finds himself up to the top side. It's now Dalton Ledbetter. For the first time in 4 restarts, Trevor Oswinarth has been taken off of that second place position. He'll find himself now in third, second on the inside groove. If you're still here with us, this is the time to the checkered flag fall. If we have a yellow flag within 5 laps of the checkered flag, which means 5 to go or anywhere inside of that window, then we will be automatically going to an overtime procedure in which we might see up to 3 green-white checkers, which could extend the race beyond the advertised 120 laps we have seen to this point. Nine laps to go. Time is running out, and it's ran out. If you're here with us at this point, we saw 29 drivers start, 23 are on the lead lap, going back to Logan Tackett, and unfortunately for Logan, I don't quite know if he's got a shot to go for it, given the condition of his racing car. With that said, he's still in this one, and technically speaking, could win from the lead lap. Meanwhile, you got 22 drivers in better standing, who all have relatively clean race cars. Those are the drivers you got to look out for. Adam Baker with a chance to prove himself here for the race win. It's on the line in the next coming 8 laps. The iRacing pace car will step aside and let the field control themselves. At the helm, Baker. Just beside him, Ledbetter. Green flag is due to fly for our 8th restart of the night. Two by two, the field gets away. It'll be Adam Baker and Dalton Ledbetter, who were first and second. The outside gets shoved a little bit to the wayside, though. Now you've got that Eric LeBombard car. One we mentioned, he could be silent but deadly tonight, and that's what he's proven to be. LeBombard helping out with Joe Madigan, coming right with John Colmorgan in the black and yellow number 63. While Dalton faced struggles, another Bumblebee car has come to the rise, and the East Air number 63 is now in ground for a top 5 finish. 7 laps to go. That's what's coming up. It's going to be a sweet 7 as the field comes through the start-finish line again. Adam Baker, still your race leader, and with them, Oswinarth, Ledbetter, Griffin, LeBombard, and Cole Morgan, not to mention the spotter, the man we mentioned to begin with, Ryan Honeycutt. Ryan took his time away from the front of the field, but the pole sitter knows he still has the speed to go out there and win this thing. Rest assured, he's now exactly where he needs to be, looking as the field comes into its own. The pressures are beginning to fold on many drivers. Bob Leclerc goes all the way through the grass. Does he come back up? Yes, he does. No save this time. A massive wreck. Yellow flag is out, and Leclerc this time, well, he's the culprit. Caution's out as the International faces some big trouble with 7 laps to go. Take a look at this. It looks like a chain reaction sent Chris Walker into Bob Leclerc. This is where it gets nasty, though. 42, much like Walker all those laps ago, couldn't hit the brakes. Just too quick. Ross Dalton hits Austin Taylor, and Leclerc luckily doesn't hit anyone on his way up or down. It was the reaction which was the nasty part. Dalton, notably once again Austin Taylor, gets the short end of the stick. And so the yellow flag flies with 6 laps remaining, and it's going to be about time to figure out who's got what it takes. With only 4 green flag laps at the most, and we might only see 3 here. Any other cautions from this point will send the race in the green-white checkered territory, and as a result, an overtime finish could be on the cards. Griffin looks low, thinks better of it, comes back on the track, and a lot of other drivers do the exact same thing. They'll fake low, keep themselves on the racetrack. Everyone now knows pretty clearly it's time to go for it. Lapper up on the top side, getting some time back there. That's one of the few who are still with us. Daniel Park, he was 1 lap down. Now he's back on the lead lap. 22 down is Jeffrey Johnson, who still has a chance to get back on the circuit. They're still giving service to this number 13 car, although it's been quite a while since he stepped foot. Been half an hour, as a matter of fact. Johnson is in 25th now, and it looks like he will stay in 25th even if he gets back on the circuit here, so he's locked in for one of those positions. Daniel Park is now the 24th and last on the lead lap, and Logan Tackett, well, he's got the hood back. It's a major step up for Logan, but he's still getting significant damage repairs to have any shot at gaining position here. And that doesn't underscore the amazing efforts that team has put in to get back to this point. They were running practically with half a motor, and now they've got the front hood back on that thing. Maybe a chance they'll be hitting 170 miles an hour again, even though these caution runs have been short. There's still a huge difference between a damaged car and a clean one. Luckily, of course, for that team, one that has been struggling all night long to get back to this point, I think there's now a real chance we might see a top 20 out of an ailing Tackett. Here's the situation as we call it. 3 laps to go and we go back green means that we can go for a 2-lap green flag run and get to the white flag. When we get to the white flag, the race is official and you cannot extend it any longer. However, any other caution from this point onward, which means that a yellow flag falling within this lap, the 3 to go lap, the next lap when it's 2 to go, or the white flag would end the race if it's the white flag. It would not end the race if it's from 3 to go to 2 to go. That's when we head to the overtime procedure. In that procedure, we'll see the race extend further and get a mandatory 2 green flag lap run to end things. We have 3 attempts at green-white checkers. The last one would be official no matter what. And in that final official run, the race would end under yellow. However, no other cautions from here means the race ends at lap 120 as advertised. That's the fair balance. Stay green. This race ends at lap 120. Any other caution will go beyond that point. Trevor Oswinarth has been second place for quite a few restarts in consecutive order. This time around, he isn't even third. Instead, he's up on top. Position number 1, race leader. And there's no way around that now. He's the driver above all else. He's got a chance now to do something, of course, he might have expected himself to do with how strong he's been running in these past restarts. The expectation might have just become to win and to go out there, collect the checkered flag. Trevor's down low, and 117 laps ago, Cody Griffin started this race in second. He is back in P2, and he has a very real chance to win this race himself. 7.5 miles, 3 laps, 1 race winner. We're going to find out who that driver is at the end of this final stint. Pace car's low. Asquinart is on the bottom, and he'll get the rolling start. Green flag is out for only 3 more laps of racing. Joe Madigan drops down to the bottom. It's neck and neck for every driver else, but Trevor Asquinart gets the start of dreams as he blocks down to the bottom side. Jaden Midell is the only one to spin. Huge wreck! And we're going to overtime just like that. John Colmorgan up and over. Chris Walker. We're heading to a green-white checkered finish. Just a moment away from what we thought was a 1-car spin. Well, that became the field. Watch this in slow motion. Honeycutt into Colmorgan, and just one minor bit of contact is the difference. Evan Carbone with a heads-up play of the race right there. He'll get away. Adam Baker gets lucky. Colmorgan stays on all fours. Ryan Honeycutt, however, massive hit. Caution is out. Carbon's up and downs continue, but this time he's on an upstring as he gets away from that most recent incident. Take a look from on board the number 78. Perfect timing, diving low, and there's nobody in sight after that. So it's an overtime finish. 2 laps of racing guaranteed. This is our first of 3 attempts. If we get to the white flag, this race is official, and it will conclude under green. If not, we go for our 2nd or 3rd attempts. That's not a guarantee just yet. Field has to stay calm and collected to get to that point. Two laps to green from this point. The anticipation for every driver is that this will be the first and only green-white checkered attempt. Hopefully we don't go down the road of a few more. We do only have 3 in the bank, but this is the first, so we can only stretch it 2 times further from here. What I don't think anyone wants to see is that 3 green-white checkered policy enacted to the fullest. What the worst thing is when we have a race end under yellow. That could happen if we have 3 more cautions from here. 3 more yellow flags, and the race ends before we get to the checkered flag. It will end prematurely, and the final positions and running orders will be decided by iRacing scoring loops based on where the drivers were at the time of caution. Nobody wants to see that. What we want to see is maybe just a final run under green. Very real chance now that we get to that point in one piece. Cody Griffin going down to the inside, and it looks like he's saving his fuel here. This is a bad thing for the 89 of Trevor Asquinart. Keep this in mind. He went down to pit road last at lap number 78. And he's now having to go for a 45-lap run, the longest of anyone on the track. He is the only driver holding out from the 70s. Nobody else has taken it this far. It's impressive, first and foremost, that he's even made it this far on his own accord. But with that said, he's got to go 2 more laps. Here we go again. 78 to 123. That's a lap of 45 laps rather, for his stint. Mike Steele will be in third, Evan Carlin will be in fourth, and Logan Truitt will again be in P5. Logan made that decisive call with about 10 laps to go to head down a pit road and get himself a new set of tire. And it looks like that paid off, because not only does he have the new rubber and he can go like hell, he also has himself the track position most necessary for a win in the dying moments of a race. It'll be a 2-lap run from here. And this, by all accounts, should be it. Griffin again maintains that second place spot he had before the last restart came to a close. And Trevor Oswinarth is the man on top. Still your leader. And for the 6th time in the past 7 restarts, he is one of 2 men on the front row. Nobody else has done it like Trevor today, that's for sure. And it's going to prove the case once again when we go for our green-white checkered. Fred Jones, the iRacing official pace car. We've seen him many a time today, and it looks like at long last he might just have a chance to breathe and watch this race with us. The pace car dives in. Oswinarth and Cody Griffin, 2 drivers with completely different stories. Trevor, by all accounts, has dominated the second half of this race. Cody Griffin started second, checked out, and has come back all this far. Green flag's out with the 89 getting a rocket launch. He'll get a car length and a half off that jump with 5 miles remaining. That could be the difference. Casey's shoe, without a front end, is inside the top 5 and he's spinning. It's contact, Michael Steele. We're going to double overtime on that note. Steele among others involved, and the caution is out. As quick as we got going, we got stopped. Take a quick look back here, as this one came by our screens at the right time. Steele hit then by the number 25 into the 96. You see so many other drivers piling in. Chris Walker once again. It's unbelievable. John Colmorgan gets a piece there. Dalton Ledbetter hits the brakes and gets away. Daniel Park right there too. Parts flying off these cars. The 25 tries to get away, but alas, from the front to the back, the field is afflicted. Eric LaBombard given some front-end damage I'm sure he does not want. Double overtime. We have one more attempt in our back pocket. The race is not over. And so we'll regroup them once again. For one final time, since we're getting back to our yellow flag formation, we have some time in between the green flag racing and the caution. We'll give you a brief portion of our non-stop coverage live on FTN and return to the 1 lap to go point. Thank you for tuning in and keeping the action going on FTN. If you have a prediction you'd like to make for who's going to win this race, let us know in the chat room below. We'll be right back after our final promotional messages of the hour.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Boundless makes its presence felt. It will not be ignored. We're helping turn ideas into reality with a wealth of building products that take every architectural style to the next level. This is what it's like to imagine, build, and transform anything we want into exactly what we seek. This is what it means to be boundless.
Double overtime in Daytona. The SOUTHTONA 300 has come down to a last-ditch effort. 5 miles for any driver to come away as a race winner. Ryan Honeycutt gets back on the track, and unfortunately for him, while on the lead lap, you can see he is destroyed. On the flip side, continued efforts for one driver, as we take our focus onto the better of it. Logan Tackett has taken more than a half hour. He's been on pit road on or off for the past hour in succession, and I'll tell you this much, that number 6 looks pretty good after all the time he got put into it. Now, he could shock us, but he's certainly looking for at least the top 15 with all the effort he's put in. Major shout out to this entire number 6 team for getting all that work put together. It's been a long haul, but now he's here when it matters most. Evan Carabon will be the man to lead this one. Again, he made an amazing dodge. He's been great at that, avoiding these wrecks just with intuition, and he does it once more. Trevor Oswinarth will this time be on the high groove. Don't get your hopes up for making the white flag automatically. Once again, we might not even get there on this run. We might head to triple overtime. And with how unpredictable this race has been, it's gotten even more exciting to figure out who's got what it takes. But I think now, from 24th up to 1st, Evan Carabon would like to be that driver. With $300 on the line, victory sounds awful sweet. Ryan Honeycutt, for what it's worth, he comes away with a $45 bonus for the pole position, but $300, I think it's a little bit better than that. Green flag's gonna fly, gears are grabbed as Evan Carabon gets things going. Up top, the 78 takes it quick. Cody Griffin decides to head down to the bottom and keep himself sight set on the low groove. Back straightaway is going to be wide open for the leading drivers. Ross Dalton in the mix. You see here, Logan Hackett has been able to get himself back up inside. How about this one? 13th place for Tackett, who had a completely destroyed car. Now he's got a shot to make some gains. Meanwhile, up to the front of the field, it's now all about Evan Carabon and Cody Griffin. Griffin's got himself eyeing the low side. He's, of course, the guy who's got the money on the house, so for him to win, he'd save an awful lot. But I think Carabon wants to take that back and then some. White flags out. This race is official. Contact just beyond the start-finish line. Back half of the field. We stay green. Carabon has the edge into turn 1. Contact up top. That'll be Austin Taylor. The leaders are still together. Taylor watches as the dream of victory fades away. Meanwhile, the leaders are still going forth. Oswinarth, second row. caught in between the battle up front and the drivers behind him. 3 wide now as Logan Truitt takes it up to the third groove, but he doesn't have enough help. Cody Griffin now leading with a turn remaining, sees Eric LaBombard just behind. Joe Madigan tries to give the shove, but in doing so, the entire field comes apart. Carlbin goes up on the high side, and he'll be the only one straight at the line. Evan Carlbin from 24th to 1st outlasts the field. $300 richer, and the only driver to come through with a straight-faced race car. Carlbin wins. Ross Dalton, against all odds, comes away in second. Dalton Ledbetter is in third at the checkered flag. Can you believe it? Evan stayed straight, and before we could even get our minds on Cody Griffin, who looked to be a sure thing, he goes up, door bangs once, twice. He falls out of the picture. Ross Dalton somehow beats Ledbetter at a 45-degree angle, and Carlbin wins it all. A lot to celebrate. From 24th up to 1st and 23rd up to 2nd, the back of the grid wins tonight. An explosive finisher for the 78 team. Evan Carlbin is the winning man at 300 miles end. Race results go as follows tonight for the SOUTHTONA 300. Evan Carlbin wins with Ross Dalton second and Dalton Ledbetter finishing then in third. It'll be Trevor Oswinarth in fourth, and fifth place coming home is Chris Walker. Eric LaBombard comes away in P6, and Cody Griffin is in seventh. Bob Leclerc gets away in eighth, with ninth place then and there being Logan Tackett, and Jaden Mizell finishes off in the top 10. 11th place then from there going to be Adam Baker with Logan Truitt and Casey Shue 12th and 13th. Chris Ellis 14th. Dylan Butler in 15th, and Jared Ogletree 16th. Daniel Park P17. 18th, Ryan Honeycutt. You saw there at the very end, he ends up destroying our race winner. Ryan Honeycutt 18th, and Landon Norris in 19th, with Austin Taylor in 20th. 21st place, then going to be the driver just outside of the 53, of course. You see 21st, Joseph Sizik. Joe Madigan 22nd, Mike Steele in 23rd, John Colmorgan 24th, and Jeffrey Johnson 25th, with Robert Missy 26th, Jordan Blair 27th, Curtis May 28th, and Ian Smith P29. What a run. The checkered flag falls on what was an excellent performance for every driver, the likes of which, of course, we've seen before these long races, but not always do they come in such dramatic fashion at the very end. So without further ado, we're going to get a word from your race winner, and that's, of course, the man at the front of your screen right here, Evan Carlbin. Unlike any performance we've seen, Daytona anyway, 24th to 1st, he had to drop down the order, went up to 1st again, dropped down the order a second time, and in the final lap, held on against all the chaos to win here in Daytona. The World Center of Racing is his, and with it comes $300. Let's hear from your top driver, Evan Carlbin, in the number 78. Broadcast booth right now, we've got the man who got it done. The number 78 of Evan Carlbin spent 300 miles on track, started in 24th, and had to work time and time again to stay up at the front of the field. And at long last, you come away from the 300-mile race its winner, and $300 richer at that.
Yeah, that was a doozy. At one point, I was almost a lap down. I just can't thank Trevor Oswinarth and Chris Walker enough for helping me out throughout the end of that race. Trevor gave me the final boost that I needed as Cody and I were going to come down to the finish. It was a great race. I didn't make a lot of friends out there, but who needs friends when you're winning and you're in victory lane?
And tonight you had to make quite a lot of moves to even get up to the front of the field. You mentioned it started from the tail end. How was it for you on that initial drive and having to go back and forth multiple times to even stay in contention?
It felt like slicing through. It felt like slicing through bread, dude. It like the perfect bread. It just every time I stayed patient. I stayed technical, methodical, and every time I got to the front, I hope I made my mark. But I can't thank Cody Griffin enough for putting on an event like this. $235, $300, whatever I got, it's going all to the team fund of the Jack Shack. So the Jack is shacking right now.
And now with that top position taken, you got to, of course, walk us through that green-white checkered, an overtime finish, our double overtime feature, and door banging, drivers going side by side, the wreck at the line. How was it for you controlling those last 2 laps?
It was just a matter of my teammate Trevor Osbernoth. I was just asking him every time, you got temps? There was a time, I think, on the last lap where coming off at 2, I almost spun it out. I think netcode played a factor into that one, but I kept my foot in it and I kept it straight. And yeah, man, it was just a matter of who had the temps and who had the help. And yeah, Trevor gave me that final boost coming down to the line when, like I said, when Cody was doing me up the track. But it was a great finish nonetheless.
And it looks like tonight going your way. Kicking off February with a bang here in the SOUTHTONA 300. You think you're going to be back here for the 500 next week?
I have some investments with the PGR 500 this coming week. You guys should totally check it out. PGR Esports on YouTube. We have up to 240 entries racing for a $2,000 first place prize. But if the time permits, I will be making it to the SOUTHTONA 500.
And so, kicking off this speed week with a big win, Evan Carlbin, checkered flag is yours. Any final comments or shout-outs you'd like to give out?
Shout out to the Jack Shack. Shout out to the boys, Trevor and Chris. They stuck through and through. They got top 5s in the end, and thankful for David Flanagan. He was coaching me through that whole race. And shout out to my dad, who's been fighting a sickness for a little bit. He just got diagnosed with cancer again. So this win is for him mainly.
And a major win, Evan Carlbin coming away with the checkered flag in Daytona. Thank you for your time and wishing the best for your father's recovery.
Thank you, David. Great broadcast, by the way.
With that said, Evan Carlbin gets the job done, race winner in Daytona, and what a spirited drive it was. Okay, look at this. This is about 5 minutes before the checkered flag fell. Look how far back Ross Dalton is, and watch the tape of the replay as we go through the interviews. He's outside the top 20 at this point, and he made it up to second place. And that's why we're interviewing him now. $200 richer. RDR comes away with the podium finish. Ross Dalton, perhaps unexpected, you really made those last 2 laps count.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. It was wild. I put off my fast repair for as long as I possibly could, and luckily I had a fast repair after I got in that one of the last wrecks. I don't know. I rode around for the longest time trying to stay out of trouble, and every time they would wreck, it'd be right in front of me. So, was able to bring home second. It was ugly, but at least we got to bring home second. So it was fun. All in all, it was fun. Looking forward to next weekend. It's going to be really grueling, but it'll be a lot of fun, I think.
And you mentioned, of course, tonight, you weren't up in the front of the field maybe the entire night, but you made it happen to get there when it mattered most. So I had to ask first and foremost, how was it for you traversing the race? It looked like a tricky one for the most part, but you got a good result.
Yeah, and I felt like I kept myself in a really good position the whole entire time, making sure that I was around people that I trusted to race around. And there was a couple that was in there, the guy that won and 2 of his buddies, they made it a little tough on a couple people by doing lane controlling and stuff like that. And they caused quite a few wrecks doing that, and just learning how to race around some of these people was pretty tough. But it's part of it. That's speedway racing, and we're just gonna have to form up if they're gonna run the 500 next weekend. We're gonna have to form up and do what they do. So, go back and take some notes, build some better setups, and learn how to control lanes a little better.
With that said, learning for what's next. I know you're registered for the big one, the 500 miler coming up next week. 300 was pretty long. I don't know how these drivers are going to take 200 laps.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be real tough. It's gonna be hard on some of these guys, man. It's you don't realize how long you're sitting here until you get about done and you are done. You're like, man, thank God that's over. But it's wild. It's a lot of fun. I love speedway racing. It's just it's really hard not knowing who you're racing against and how they control their car and what positions they're willing to put themselves in and what positions they're not. So it makes it a lot of fun. My guys, they're a little more conservative at the early parts, and then at the end we get wide open and try our best to get up front. It might not be the best strategy, but that's what we did. So, and it worked out to at least get to second and was within just a little bit of bringing home a win.
Oh, so close to coming away with the checkered flag to kick off SOUTHTONA Speed Week. 300 miler, second place, Ross Dalton. Any final shout outs you'd like to give?
Oh yeah, for sure. Got to give a huge shout out to Cody for everything that he's did. He's put a lot of effort into this thing and getting these cars in and providing a pretty good race here for all of us. And that's big. I got to thank Michael Still for all that he does, making sure that all of our guys has got good looking wraps and putting RDR on them and broadcasting his logos and stuff like that, making sure that all of our guys look really good. Michael Still with Michael Still Designs does such a phenomenal job. And again, just all my guys, Adam, Austin, Jordan. I hated that Jordan got took out so early, but just part of it, I reckon. And Michael for racing with him, and Daniel, all of our guys with RDR and stuff, and Cody obviously for putting this thing on and working with us in the race as well. We'll do some testing throughout the week and be prepared for the 500 next week.
Well, with that said, Ross Dalton, the good first attempt here in Daytona. 200 miles, $200 richer, and 300 miles, that we should say. It was a long one, and even a little bit more. But you come away with the podium finish. Second place, Ross. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, buddy.
Dalton on the move. One last driver in Dalton Ledbetter. The number 32 gets away with the last spot on the podium. Just 17 1,000ths off the top two. Still $100 you come away with Dalton at the end of a long one here in Daytona.
Yeah, man, that was definitely a long race. We tried to stay out of trouble at the beginning. We were up there at the front at the beginning of the race and then got caught up in a wreck. Everybody's just trying to go too hard, I guess, at the beginning there, and it didn't work out for us. But luckily, we only had like a minute damage, so we got it fixed and didn't use our fast repair until the later in the race. And I bumped into the 23 there coming to the line. It kind of stacked the foot up a little bit, and everybody just went crazy. You know how it is at Daytona. But luckily, we crossed the line third. And
coming away with that strong finish. Overall, you started well with a qualifying position of 6th, but it was a long race, and really, that didn't mean all too much. So how'd you manage the strategy knowing there was so much time on the table?
Well, at the beginning, me and Cody there, I was 6th, and I think he was 2nd or whatever. So we tried to work together at the beginning, and we were riding up there in the front, trying to save a little fuel, and everybody else was just controlling the lanes like them. Forget who it was, but them 3 cars were causing a lot of stack ups and stuff for us, and then they caused a big wreck there. And so then after that, we just kind of stayed in the back altogether there and rode for like 80 laps probably until about 40 to go on that last caution. Then we went to the front, and it was still getting dicey there. Then we had to use our fast repair, and then it was just a matter of time before everybody was going to wreck again.
And unfortunately, we see it end there with a double overtime finish, so everyone was real tight till the checkered flag. How was it for you to manage the chaos as really everything happened in those last seconds?
Yeah, I just kind of look in front of me there, and once I see smoke flying, I just let off the gas and hope for the best. There ain't really much you can do with people pushing you, and you can't really see when you're right up against somebody. But I don't really try to push in these cars. I just try to stay right there on them and go half throttle and use the guy behind me to kind of keep me with momentum with the guy in front of me, But yeah, everything worked out, and we came home with a third place finish. So guess it ain't too bad.
Getting the job done for the first podium of SOUTHTONA Speed Week. Before we head to the 500, any final shout-outs and comments you'd like to give?
Yeah, I'd like to appreciate, Cody Griffin for putting this race on and stuff. It was definitely a good turnout, maybe next Sunday if I'm allowed to run in it. Hopefully people use their head, because 200 laps is a long race. It's going to take a few hours to run. And yeah, I mean, I usually run a lot of NASCAR stuff, like short track wise, and I run that Road to Pro stuff. And Daytona is just really fun, It's just a lot of patience there.
And it's about time that we get to it. 500 miles next week, but to kick it off, Dalton Ledbetter coming away P3 here in the SOUTHTONA 300. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Dalton Ledbetter on the way. That's a word from all of your top 3 drivers tonight. Ledbetter coming through. He gets it for P3. Ross Dalton gets through for second place. And of course, Evan Carlin hangs on for that one last run. And that, of course, was for victory. $300 going to your race winner, $200 to second place, and $100 to third, with $45 handed out to your pole sitter in Ryan Honeycutt. The checkered flag falls on an action-packed day of racing here in Daytona. And with that said, it's about time that we bid farewell until next week. Programming updates. Tonight, the World Series of HCBB continues on FTN. Game 2 coverage brought to you by the FTN Broadcasting crew as the top 2 teams in the league continue their fight. So for those interested, live at 9 p.m. EST, the HCBB World Series continues as the Washington Wizards face up against the Dallas Panthers. Panthers lead the series 1-0 so far. Next week, it'll be the SOUTHTONA 500. It'll be another spectacle, the likes of which we saw today, but on an even grander scale. Tune in next week, 3 p.m. on a Sunday, as we see SOUTHTONA go for a 200-lap, full-length Cup Series race. It's going to be a test of skill and time and determination for everyone in the field. And thank you for tuning in to coverage tonight from the virtual Daytona International Speedway. This has been coverage of the SOUTHTONA 300. In its inaugural running. Congratulations to Evan Carlin for getting the job done and winning tonight's race. And of course, thank you to Cody Griffin for getting the job done, hosting this race, and bringing it to life. I've been your host, David Kreutz, commentating and producing, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's coverage. We'll be back for our next SOUTHTONA feature, February 3rd, and we can't wait to see you until then. Thank you for tuning in tonight on FTN Broadcasting. We hope you have a fantastic night.